Sound art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it sound art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
With 7 races remaining in the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, Jesse Webb and Chris Beets are doing all they can to make sure that this title fight is just a 2-driver battle. While Webb has the points lead by virtue of his win in Belle Isle last week, neither driver has finished worse than second through the first 3 races of the season. Now the series heads to Spa for their first endurance race on the calendar with a track that contains some of the most daunting corners on the sim. Will a third winner emerge when the checkered flag flies following 90 minutes in Belgium? Or will Webb and Beets continue to stock up on the victories? Round 4 of the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series is here, and it's live on Pit Stop TV. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the virtual Spa-Francorchamps GP circuit, where tonight we are playing host to the 4th race of 10 in the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. I'm Eric Brennan. Pleasure to be with you once again in what has been an incredibly entertaining and competitive series. And I am joined tonight by a number of our Pit Stop TV comrades. Trey Shuttlesworth is going to join me on the call of tonight's races. We'll check in with Trey momentarily. Emerson Arden back in our production truck, handling all the scenery you're going to be seeing here tonight. And Corey Rexford is handling our social media duties as well. With that, though, we are now into qualifying on tonight's racing action, and there's so much information to compile. But first, Trey, the track. Everybody knows it as a favorite on the annual Formula One calendar. We are running the GP layout, but we mentioned in the intro that this track is relatively daunting. You've run it on the sim. In fact, you've got 24-hour experience here before. Is this track really as challenging and intimidating as we're hyping it up to be?
First of all, Eric, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you in the booth tonight, and a pleasure to be working with Emerson and Corey, who are behind the scenes tonight. But yeah, this circuit is very daunting. It's incredibly high speed, and while there's a lot of modern paved runoff in a lot of the corners to, make it appropriate for modern Grand Prix racing, it's still a circuit that's very technically difficult. And the thing that makes it even more difficult as an iRacer is just the fact that if you take into account the incident point system, which if you get too many incident points, you can get penalized, whether it be in points, getting a drive-through, or just being disqualified through the event. But if you go dip into your tires into the AstroTurf at all whatsoever, it's going to cost you 1 incident point. And that could add up really quickly if you do not get into a rhythm right off the bat here at Spa. So it's going to be a very technical challenge, as you said. A lot of high-speed corners, but then there's also a mix of media speed. And then that last chicane, too, can be very daunting, very heavy braking zone, and one of the better overtaking opportunities on the circuit.
Yeah, that last chicane there, part of this 4.35-mile layout, 19 corners in total. And, it's part of the intimidating and natural complexion of this racetrack begins on the first sector of the racetrack. A Rouge, turn 3, really turn 2 to turn 3. That uphill side winding corner there that leads you up to turn number 4. Many call that the most difficult corner in all of motorsports, no matter what type of car you're driving in. And we'll be referencing all portions of this racetrack. But the other factor here tonight, Trey, with this race is the endurance factor. This is the first race that is going to be longer than the 60-minute time limit. And we were talking before we went on air, a lot of these drivers were investing their time in preparing for the 24 Hours of Daytona this past weekend. Maybe not logging as many laps here in this venue. What is that going to do for some of these competitors as far as getting acclimated to this racetrack, knowing they're going to have to work 30% longer than they have all season long?
It is definitely going to be difficult because these guys didn't get probably at least get the opportunity to practice as much as they would have liked. They did get a 3-hour practice session prior to tonight's race, but in the least, I think most of these drivers run official iRacing GT3 series, whether it be the Sprinter Endurance series, and they visited Spa at the start of the season, which was about a month ago, so they should at least have a little bit of that muscle memory in the bank. So it's not going to be going in cold by any means, I don't think, at least for most of these drivers. It's just going to be something we're going to have to see over the course of the running tonight, for the 90 minutes tonight.
And with such a fine line to straddle between perfection and disaster, making sure that you keep all 4 wheels on the pavement is going to be objective number 1 throughout the 90-minute contest. Now, this is race number 4 on the season. We've had 3 in the book so far, and ironically, our top 3 finishers from Belle Isle last week make up the top 3 positions in points. As we mentioned, Jesse Webb, 2-time winner on the season. Chris Beats, the only other winner thus far. They're atop the championship standings, and neither of them having a finish worse than runner-up position, as they've kind of gone back and forth between finishing first and second and so on. The driver who moved into third place at championship standings, James Hansen, had his first podium finish of the season last week in Belle Isle. Also, Curtis Jones with a very consistent year, and Chris Brunnemer, who had a top 2 finish in championship points the last time out for the Pacific Challenge, rounds out your top 5. And then the story starts to evolve there a little bit. Like John Wittendorf, one of the drivers competing in the Audi, he actually did not run at Detroit, our last race out, still up there 6th at championship points, with James Allen 7th, and Spencer Vick, who is the highest running amateur, as these groups were split up between pro and the amateur category. The difference there pretty much is that of iRating, and Spencer Vick right now is the only amateur driver in the field who is top 10 in points. Again, the points are being tallied the same across the board, but he carries the honor of being the highest position amateur racer at this point in the season, with Jackson Lowry and Corey Peters rounding out your top 10. And Trey, I don't know if there's any drivers that jump out at you. Obviously, Brunnemer was a front runner last year, as was Wittendorf, but now he's going to have to lean on the fact that he wasn't in that race last week at Detroit. So when they calculate the points, that may be his one and only mulligan. Webb and Beats, though, they're in another league right now.
Yeah, with Wittendorf, as you said, he is probably going to have to take that drop week as a result, just due to the fact that he wasn't able to participate. So, and as you said, that's one mulligan that, quite frankly, other drivers still have in the bank if you're a driver that's going to compete in every round. So he's definitely at a disadvantage. But the fact that he's still 6th in points, missing a round after only 3 rounds, just shows that he's definitely one of the guys that you should look to be a championship contender this season. Although, as I say that, Webb and Beats have been in a league of their own. And if you're going by the trends, it should be a win for Christopher Beats tonight, and Webb should finish 2nd. But, of course, we're just going to have to see over the course of 90 minutes tonight. And, yes, Spencer Vick is another guy that's very notable just because, as you said, Eric, he is in the amateur class, and he's building quite the gap over 2nd place Alexander King. He has a 33-point advantage, which is quite large when you get down into the midfield section, just with how this points format is designed.
It's also a lot of names who are not up in that top 10 in points who have run well throughout the season. However, they have not had that breakthrough result that they're looking for. We'll see if tonight is in fact the night. But that's the story as we head into tonight's race here at Spa. And it'll allow us now to turn the page and look at how things have transpired so far here this evening. We talked about Webb. We talked about Beats. Those are the 2 drivers to keep an eye on. Well, Jesse Webb was the fastest in practice, not by a huge margin, though. Not like what we saw a week ago in qualifying. We got down to Belle Isle. He was quickest in practice by 0.2 of a second. And there you see Webb is quickest in this qualifying session as we're past the halfway point with about 8.5 minutes to go over Nick Ledecky, who was dominating the field at Road America 2 races ago when he crashed out of the lead. He also did not make the trip to the Belle Isle race that we had a week back. This is his first time back in action, but due to the accident he had at Road America, he finds himself buried 17th place in the championship standings as we see a driver run wide there off the corner. Ledecky is somebody who is trying to get the one that got away. He looked as though he had the car, had the pace, had the ability to grab top honors at Road America, and it slipped out away from him at the kink, and he ended up finding the concrete hard, thus ending his night with a 37th place finish. And right now, though, Webb has just lowered the bar significantly. How about a 2-minute, 16-second lap? He's now opened up the gap on Ledecky to by 0.4 of a second, with Hansen rounding out your top 3 for the time being. And here's Ledecky, second right now in the timing and scoring charts, looking for an opportunity to try to pick up some time here. But Trey, we have 33 cars that took laps in practice, 27 so far in this qualifying session. And, lap traffic, we'll talk about it during the 90-minute race, but in qualifying, a 4-mile track, you want to make sure when you get out there, if you want to lay down a flyer, you don't want to be impeded by traffic up ahead of you. And unfortunately for Ledecky, it looks like he did have a vehicle ahead of him, wisely moves aside. But, that could kill about 2 to 4 minutes of this qualifying session for you, maybe 25% of the total length of the session, if you just happen to merge out on track at the most inopportune time. How frustrating can that be when you know that you can lay down a quick lap time and you got another vehicle in front of you to worry about?
It's kind of the risk that you take when you get into a series that has an open qualifying session, as opposed to a lot of, whether it be leagues or official series, you'll get into a private session where it's just you and 2 laps and, say 8 minutes on the clock for you to go out there and do it. But the one thing you can do is get an advantage, especially at a place like Spa, because of the slipstream that you can generate on some of the long straightaways, such as we come on to the end of the Kemble Straight with Chris Beats. That's one of the best places to get a lot of slipstream on the circuit, and that can pay off massive dividends, multiple tenths over the course of a lap. So that's something you definitely have to take into account, as well as what you said about trying to avoid any cars that might impede your progress on your qualifying lap. In the least, these guys get 20 minutes. So there's a lot of opportunity for mistakes and to be able to capitalize on anything in the long run.
So a lot of opportunities to make up time and also lose time, as we've seen. And have to say, I'm pretty impressed by the gap that has formed between the top 5. We mentioned that Webb and Beats were the 2 to watch, and there's actually almost a 1-second difference between the 2. We're watching Jesse Webb here try to lay down another quick time before the session expires. We got about 5.5+ minutes to go before we give out another quick time award. Also, we see Mikkel Rudebusch making his way up into the top 10 in the session, currently scored in 9th. And Rudebusch, somebody who was a front runner in the last season that was run for the GT3 Series. We're on board with him here now, coming up to one of the left-handers. And, Rudebusch, somebody who has garnered a reputation as being very clean. However, bad luck just plagued him throughout the first 2 races of the series. Rudebusch, though, is somebody who is trying to make up ground, 16th in the championship standings, 20th, 35th, and then finally the top 5 that he got at Belle Isle. is perhaps the momentum shifter, as he avoids a car that had crashed there at that sector of the racetrack. Hopefully trying to shake whatever bad luck may come his way throughout the night and get it out of the way early. But that was one car. I believe that was the car of Allen that had an issue just up in front of him. And Rudebush was able to avoid, and I think he was able to keep it on the throttle. But, Trey, there's the look, the uphill climb. Here's the front straightaway. They come up to a Rouge. This track, we use the word daunting, and we're not overselling the trepidation that this track has. Narrow in some spots, relatively flat out and wide open throughout the majority of the circuit and layout. I mean, you put a wheel off here, it's easy to find a barrier.
Yeah, it doesn't take much at all. Even with the in some cases, what seems like miles and miles of runoff area in some of the corners, there's also other places on the circuit where if you get it quite wrong, like you said, Eric, it's very easy to go into the tire barriers. A great example of it is the run-up erosion to Radeon. While there's a lot of pavement there, one, miscalculation in your steering input, and you could very well be in the tire barrier on the right side, and that's also the pit exit lane, so it could get quite terrifying quite quickly. Actually, I have to make a quick correction. We're utilizing the Grand Prix circuit, so we won't be utilizing that pit exit tonight. Won't be a factor.
Yeah, and I will tell you, hats off to you, Trey, for being able to nail down some of the key names of this track, because that could be tough for us American broadcasters or so. So hats off to you there, buddy, because we're going to be referencing some of these spots a lot throughout the night, as Ledecky is running out of opportunities here to overtake Jesse Webb atop the timing and scoring pylon. And one of the other factors that we're going to be talking about throughout the night is pit strategy. We've seen in the 60-minute races in the past, we were talking prior to coming on air as to what we could expect to see tonight, with a 75% fuel fill, we normally see these drivers be forced to be in a position to make one pit stop. But Trey, you brought up the good point. Being that the track is as long as it is, 4.35 miles, the on-throttle time for this car and this track could make them flirt with having to stop twice. Is that what we're kind of thinking here? We're thinking it's going to be pretty close?
Yeah, I was talking with you a little bit before the race, and just based off of what we were seeing in the first couple of rounds, we were seeing guys be able to stretch it, I think, to about, 45 or 50 minutes. And with this being a 90-minute race, I think that puts us right on the cusp of being able to make it on one stop. But this is the track that we're probably going to see the most on throttle time. So definitely feel like it's going to be a lot of fun to see whether or not guys can actually pull it off. And we'll probably get a better idea as we get later into the running. But, I think it's awesome to have that unknown variable going in at a place like this.
And I'm curious that if we are going to have some people who come into this race anticipating a two-stop strategy, if they're going to pull the trigger very early, perhaps maybe work the race backwards, get into that window as soon as they can, maybe break out from some of the traffic that's going to build up in the opening laps of this race that could impact their availability to lay down some quick lap times. I think we're going to know relatively early if some of these guys are going in here, or gals are going in here with the agenda to stop more than one time, as we see some drivers still continuing to try to push the limits in this qualifying session. We are under 2 minutes to go. And one other element that I want to bring up, Trey, before this session comes to a close, is passing opportunities. At Belle Isle, it was very, very difficult to pass, or at least to garner enough momentum to pull up alongside your competitor to try to make a move. I believe we went to nearly the halfway point without seeing a position change in the top 10, because it was just so difficult to pass and not worth the risk. Here, though, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to get the job done and make the pass. You mentioned in your track layout description that final chicane is a chance to be able to get a job done on a pass made. As a racer, when you look at this layout and this car, I mean, is passing really a concern, even though the track can be so difficult?
I don't think so, just because you have so much opportunity. Some of the best passing opportunities include the run, up into Lake Combe, which is the chicane at the end of the Kemmel straightaway following Radeon. And the reason there, and same as you'll see in Blanchimont, is because there's some high-speed corners, and if you make a mistake in a high-speed corner with such a long straightaway, you're going to be penalized. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities if you can pressure a driver ahead of you into a mistake. And then even in some of the medium-speed corners, there's similar opportunities for drivers to make mistakes and for drivers to potentially, take advantage of it as a result.
So we'll see how it all pans out for tonight's event. Again, if you've been following the series along, wherever you may be watching or enjoying our racing action here tonight, we are streaming on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Be sure to share the link to tell all your friends and family what you got going on here on the East Coast. It's a little bit after 10 o'clock. On the West Coast, prime time is the right time for Pacific Challenge GT3 racing, and we're about to bring you the 4th race of the season, and we are less than 10 seconds away from having the qualifying session draw to a close, where it looks as though Jesse Webb is going to continue his hot streak. The 2-time winner is the fastest car in the qualifying session of the 34 that took times in the session. They see the clock resetting there. If you're new to the platform and new to the sim, the checkered flag has fallen. Any driver who is on a lap has that much amount of time to complete it. We expect that we will see the series cut back over to race time sooner than that 3-minute window, especially considering the fact that most of these drivers are cornering the circuit in about 2 minutes and, let's say, 18 seconds on average. But Webb and Ledecky, we got a hard crash there. Not sure if that was intentional or not, or frustration to just draw a close to the session, but somebody binned it hard there at the end of qualifying, and that is going to end their run to try to move up on the lap time. And only a couple of cars remain out on track. There is car number 97 that is trying to improve on his lap time around. That is Corey Peters, who is top 10 of the standings, top 10 in qualifying for the time being, currently sitting in 9th and coming through the final chicane to see if Peters could better the lap time that he set and pick up perhaps a second or so to get closer to the top of the pylon. As Peters comes to the line here, he will pick up some time. How about that? Peters to 7th on his final lap around.
And Peters is a driver that has relatively flown under the radar through the first 3 rounds this season. I don't think he's gotten a ridiculous amount of airtime by any means, yet he sits 10th place in points, and he's a rookie to the series, so he's definitely one of the rookie contenders. While not the top 2, Jesse Webb and Chris Beast, he's definitely someone that's definitely making a name for himself here in the first couple of rounds. And now we're going to follow John McClintock as he tries to make his way and tries to improve here on the final run.
Yeah, McClintock, a driver who was not at the best of luck so far in this session, currently scored 28th. So this will be his last opportunity and effort to pick up time from there. McClintock, somebody else who has been competing in this series, 27th in championship points coming into the night in his Audi R8. 22nd, 32nd, 21st, looking for his first top 20 of the 2021 season in that 128 car. And McClintock will most likely be our final car to come to the checkers here as he comes off the final corner, turn number 19 through the chicane and back up onto the main straightaway. And he will come to the line, and we'll see if McClintock is able to pick up any time here as he comes to the checkered flag. And according to my timing and scoring on my end, it looks as though that McClintock continues to be in the 28th spot. So Jesse Webb, the championship point leader, a 2-time winner on the 2021 season thus far, has set the quick time over Nick Ledecky, who is still trying to get the one that got away at Road America 2 weeks back. Looks as though they will be making up our front row, and we will anticipate a starting grid as we get set for our first extra distance race of the 2021 season for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, a calendar that has been pretty impressive since they first rolled it out. This is the first of 3 endurance races. Next ones are going to be at the Nürburgring. That'll be round 7, and then we'll head on over to Sebring International Raceway for round 8. That is the 3rd and final extra distance race of the 10-race slate at Sebring. After this event, though, we'll be at the Imola circuit on February 1st for round 5, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, round 6, the aforementioned endurance races at Nürburgring and Sebring, round 7 and 8. And we will wrap up the circuit at the season at the Phillip Island Circuit and Suzuka International Racing Course, the Grand Prix layout on March 8th. All the action will be here on Pit Stop TV. But let's see how we will line up here tonight at Spa. Jesse Webb on pole with Nick Ledecky up alongside, as we mentioned, looking for an opportunity to get back up to the top of the running order after the misfortune at Road America. 3rd spot, Chris Beats was able to pick up some time and get up to 3rd late in the qualifying session. Chris Brunnemer outside in 4th spot. Back to row number 3 on the inside at 5th. James Hansen and John Wittendorf is back in action here tonight. Going to roll off outside the 3rd row in 6th spot. 7th is where you'll go back and you will find Corey Peters, who got that spot late in the qualifying session, and Curtis Jones, who's top 5 in points, to roll off in 8th. Now, rounding out the top 10 for tonight's 90-minute affair, Trevor Anderson, 9th, and Mikkel Rudebusch, your top 10.
We next look beyond the top 10, and it's going to be Brady Lubenow and Jackson Lowry making up the first row outside of the top 10, 11th and 12th, respectively. Justin Mikhaila and Sarah Rabb will make up the 13th and 14th positions tonight, and then they will be followed by Wade Hayes and Sven Hartman one of the better runners in the amateur category, I believe. Yeah, 4th place in the amateur category coming into tonight. BC Voigt and then Christian Gerges will make up 17th and 18th positions tonight. Then it's going to be Gavin Cohn and Derek Carboni rounding out the top 20 positions.
21st, where you find Alan Roth. I bet he's got the fan club watching along tonight. And Tyler Campbell outside in 22nd spot. 23rd is where you'll find Alexander King outside Ryan Coulter, who's been trying to run all the races so far this season as well. 25th, Spencer Vick. Surprising qualifying effort for him. He's the highest running amateur in points. Going to start 25th. And Mick Blue joined the session late, 26th. On the qualifying grid. 27th spot is where you're going to find Tyler Langenberg in the 191, and John McClintock, one of the last cars to come to the checkers, was 28th. They're rounding out your top 30. It's going to be Patrick Herring in the 144 and George Tacek in the 128.
Just about a half a dozen more drivers to go through here. Jimmy Allen and Jason Frisk will be in the 31st and 32nd positions. They'll be followed by Scott Snyder and Randall Ayers. It's the last driver to set a time in the session tonight. And then the final row will be David Flanagan and Michael De La Sala, rounding out your 36-car grid, up 2 cars last week at Belle Isle.
So the field is now rolling off and getting set for the green flag. Again, first extra distance race that we have on the calendar of 3. Part of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series here on Pit Stop TV. And we mentioned the fact that we've only had 2 winners so far. We're looking for the potential of a third one to emerge, and it may come from the outside of that front row, but Jesse Webb wants to keep the streak rolling. While many of these drivers had their attention turned to the 24 hours at Daytona this past weekend, their focus is now solely on this track at Spa-Francorchamps for their 4th race of the season. Through the chicane for the final time under pace speeds and on the gas. Here they come. Green flag is in the air. Jesse Webb's going to get the jump from pole. Clear Ledecky by about 2 car lengths to the approach to turn 1 as the field thaws out evenly throughout the first top 10 spots or so. And it is Webb who has the lead up to a Rouge for the first time, but Ledecky chasing.
Ledecky shaking things up. Could he be the man to break up the 1-2 streak between Jesse Webb and Chris Viets? We'll have to find out over 90 minutes. And we're also going to see how effective the slipstream is. We see already half a second down for Nick Ledecky, and we'll get an idea of how effective the slipstream is. It looks like he is definitely closing up a little bit, but it's probably not going to be enough to create an overtaking opportunity at the end of the Kemmel Straight. So it's going to continue to be Jesse Webb as we head into Lake Coombe for the first time.
See the field getting strung out pretty wisely throughout at least the first top 10. Top 4 trying to remain within striking distance of one another. We drop back a bit here. We see Corey Peters trying to pick up a few spots. He's running 7th where he started. That's John Wittendorf just ahead. And just behind is that of Trevor Anderson. A side-by-side battle developing here further back with Wade Hayes and company. And Sarah Rabb, who has been running well up towards the front. Only exception is when some bad luck may plague Sarah and take her out of contention. She had a front-running car at Road America and at Belle Isle before having some problems. And right now she's running just outside the top 10. Going to be looking to improve on that running order as we work this first lap of competition. But here's Hayes trying to close in there in 14th spot while Webb continues to lead Ledecky. And Trey, I'm with you. I'm wondering how much of a lead Webb is going to be able to build up here at the end of this first lap. According to our timing and scoring, he's already got it up to about a second. The slipstream may allow Ledecky to keep pace, but right now Webb is continuing to extend the margin up front as we are on board with Wittendorf in the Audi.
Great onboard view there with the R8, but yeah, it's so impressive that within a lap he's already up a second, especially with that opportunity that Ledecky had on the run on Lake Coombe on the Kemmel Straight to gain a lot of time. It just seems like Webb, based off of lap 1 pace, just has raw pace out. And now the battle will then turn to second place because it looks like Chris Beets is definitely keeping a bit more pressure than Ledecky is able to keep on Webb.
Coming near through the chicane for the first time under race speed. We're going to come down to complete lap number 1. And in fact, Beets is closing up on Ledecky, trying to get up to the top 2, a place in which Beets is familiar with. As we said, has not finished worse than second in the Lambo tonight as he closes up on Ledecky. In fact, these 3, Trey, were highlighted as some of the newcomers to the series for 2021. And highly anticipated. Don't want to slap a rookie tag on them per se just because they're joining this series for the first time. But their racing background and resume prove that they were ones to watch. And I'll actually tip my cap to you on air for the first time that I can this season because you were the one who actually penciled them in as 3 of the drivers to keep our eyes on as far as newcomers, even though they weren't in the contest at the end of 2020. And look at that. They're running 1, 2, 3 as of right now.
Yeah, they entered the season as the guys with the 3 highest I ratings. And if you're unfamiliar, I rating is the skill value that's utilized for matchmaking on the iRacing.com service. So it tends to be pretty indicative of your skill level. It's categorized by discipline as well. So any driving that you do on road will be utilized in your road I rating. But anyways, yeah, to get back to the point, they're definitely proving it. The one unknown variable that these guys definitely had to prove is the fact that they could drive against a field of drivers that they may not be as familiar with. And they've definitely shown that they can do the job so far in the first couple of rounds.
They're backing it up for sure, and this is one of the most competitive fields that I believe I've ever seen on the platform, especially in terms of road racing. And series organizers make sure that they run a very, very tight ship. As we drop back here to a driver in Sven Hartman, who had a very good run in practice late in the going. Looks as though he's a little bit off pace here in the BMW, losing a couple of spots and falling back. Now hugging the inside lane with a side-by-side battle taking place just in front of him, including that of Alexander King, who is trying to pick up some ground, or some ground, I should say. I'll tell you what, Trey, you look at the front, everything looks calm and copacetic and cautious, and you look at this midfield, and it is crazy what is going on back here.
I think we're seeing what's also fun about Spa is the high-speed, high-momentum nature of the circuit can tend to keep things tight in certain cases, as we're seeing, and it can create a lot of back-and-forth overtaking opportunities throughout the field. So we now follow Curtis Jones. This is one of the closer battles here near the top of the field. He's trying to chase down the Lamborghini of Corey Peters.
Peters, as we mentioned, took that 7th place spot in the qualifying session on his last lap around, with Jones following just behind. That's Anderson, the blue and white car that you see on your screen. We're actually on board with Anderson now, coming up to Eau Rouge, and this climb up the elevation here through Eau Rouge, it just doesn't do the justice as far as how unsettling it can be for the distribution of weight and load on your car. And catching those curbs, even though they're not peaked that high, they can upset the balance of your car at that precarious position. And we've seen a lot of high speed offs there throughout the practice session, but if you get it right, you can see just how much you can close up on the competitor in front of you, as he nearly got into the back bumper of Jones that time, coming through turn 5. So these drivers having a bit of a battle of their own. They've gapped Justin Mikhaila a little bit, and we got a car in trouble here on what looks like the main straightaway, and that's Sarah Rabb. For the 3rd race in a row, misfortune has plagued Sarah Rabb, one of the supporters and sponsors of this series. And Sarah Rabb, who is now going to get the car refired, she has dropped back to about the 33rd spot, starting all the way up to 14th. And Rabb, for the 3rd race in a row, is going to have some bad luck, and that was on the main straightaway, Trey.
Yeah, that's a very odd spot on the circuit for her to try to pull off. In the least, she was able to find a little bit of pavement. I have to wonder if there might have been some type of hardware issue that she was trying to fix, and that's the reason why she might have pulled off. Or perhaps she accidentally shut the engine off. It could have been a number of variables, but just overall, it's a very odd section. Of course, she also could have gotten spun around. Oh, and we have that's Alexander King, who came into tonight 2nd place in amateur points, and that's probably going to be the end of the evening for him.
King with a very, very hard crash early in this race as he was coming up through one of the left-handers, and that is the first indication that we have that this track can jump out and bite you at just about any time, and that was a hard hit for King. And I think you're right, Trey. I mean, it looks as though that Sarah just had something go on, whether it be a hardware issue, and we mentioned the bad luck she's had. I mean, again, the point standings are not indicative with how Sarah's been running. She had a very strong finish to the season finale on the 2020 side of racing efforts, but 32nd in points with her Lamborghini entry, 27th, 34th, and even with an incident while running top 5 at Detroit, or top 10 at Detroit, she was able to muster up a 19th place finish, and right now she's already behind the 8 ball here, but fortunately she has a lot of time to make up the deficit she finds herself in, especially if some of her competitors continue to have some problems like we saw Alexander King have on the exit of Eau Rouge, which we were just highlighting as a potential trouble spot on this layout. But Jesse Webb's got himself up to a 2+ second advantage. In fact, it's over 2.5 seconds now over what is turning into a 3-car battle for second. Ledecky, Beets, and Brunnemer all running in lockstep formation as Beets closes up here on Brunnemer this time through the far side of the course. And we'll see if he can set up a move here with Ledecky trying to fend him off for the time being through the right-hander.
Beets is in a brilliant position because what he is able to do, being only a couple of car lengths back, is he's able to make Ledecky compromised the optimum racing line through the corner. You'll see sometimes he'll take a bit of a shallower entry into the corner to ensure that Beets doesn't have an opportunity to peek to the inside of the corner. And that's going to slow him down oh so much over the course of a lap. So that's exactly where you want to be if you're Christopher Beets. It's really the prime position to try to force your opponent into a mistake as well, because it gives you a lot of time to react if there is a mistake from the driver ahead.
And Trey, as somebody who does not spend that much time on the sim, i.e. myself, and somebody who has not had the opportunity to race at this track or in this style car, if you're Chris Beets and you're watching Jesse Webb just continue to extend the gap up front, knowing that this is in fact a 90-minute race and we still have an hour and 20 minutes to go, at what point do you start to push the issue on Ledecky to pull out and make that pass, knowing you're losing precious time to the leader, but you also got to keep in the back of your head, this is an endurance race. You got a long way to go. You don't want to be too aggressive. How tough is it to straddle that fine line between, wanting to get there and wanting to go, but also counseling patience because of just how long this race is?
I think the thing that's tough if you're in Chris Beets' shoes tonight is the fact that he's behind a little bit in the point standing. So any position he can make up to try to get back up to Jesse Webb is going to pay off oh so much in the long run. And just with the way this points format is, I don't think you want to be overtly aggressive, because any points finish that's relatively, outside of the front of the field for these guys that consistently finish up front could pretty much end their championship hopes with the way this point system is designed. So I don't think you want to be too overtly aggressive out in the racetrack. But as you said, Eric, every lap that he's not able to make that overtake, he's going to decrease his chances of being able to catch race leader Jesse Webb. So you have to do what you can basically in this scenario.
So right now, as they run with about 10 minutes in the books on this 90-minute affair, we have not seen many position changes happen just yet throughout the top 10. As a matter of fact, Justin Michaela, I should say, Justin Michaela has moved up into the top 10. We've not seen many position changes throughout the top 5. We have seen Corey Peters pick up one spot from where he qualified, contrary to what we saw at Belle Isle. Curtis Jones is +1 as well. Same for Trevor Anderson. Michaela is one of the biggest movers, though. We're watching him here. He is, in fact, started 13th. He's up to 9th. That's a great move up into the top 10 from Michaela. Going to be looking for more. But Jackson Lowry and Mikkel Ruderbush also kind of ebb and flow a little bit and trading some spots there as we watch Curtis Jones, who's in the middle of this fight, on the bottom portion of the top 10. We did see some drivers have some trouble early on. Want to note that Brady Lubenow did not make the green flag. We did not show him recording a lap in this race, despite the fact that he was supposed to grid up 11th. Also, David Flanagan was entered in the session. He too did not turn a lap. And Sarah Rabb was one of the drivers who had problems, as was Alexander King. All cars still showing on the lead lap, however. Even Sarah Rabb with her misfortune and Alexander King with his crash. But we'll see how long that trend is able to maintain as we are watching Sarah Rabb here negotiate her way through traffic after getting back up to pace following the problem that she had. I misspoke earlier. I said it was on the front stretch. It was actually off of turn number 1 heading up to turn 2. But Webb is still the leader. The gap now about 3 seconds back to Ledecky, who still has his hands full with Chris Beets as we go on board with Beets here through the final chicane, back up onto the front stretch. And I think, Trey, the best opportunity perhaps to make a pass is if he could perfect his run, not only through turn 1, the right-handed braking zone they're about to come up here, but if you could find the balance of bravery and performance through a Rouge and keep that momentum going down a long straightaway before they hit turn 5, that may be the best passing opportunity for Beets. But as of right now, it doesn't look like he's close enough. He's about 4 car lengths back.
Yeah, Eric, there's a reason whether you be, a race car driver or a fan, that this series of corners is oh so special, because it really proves who is the bravest driver behind the wheel. Just because whether it be the wheel movements you have to make or the adjustments in throttle application, they're oh so minute, but they make a massive difference as you get down to this overtaking opportunity into Lake Coombe. So not only is it, such a breathtaking series of corners, but it creates one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit. So yeah, definitely something we're going to want to keep our eye on throughout the evening tonight. As we backtrack a little bit to the mid-teens, John Wittendorf with the company of the likes of Tyler Campbell heading into Lake Coombe.
And Wittendorf must have had some sort of issue or hiccup as he rolled off the grid in contact there. Wittendorf in trouble, collects another car, and bounces off the wall. He's going to tag another vehicle that time, and here comes the pack. Oh, and he gets hit again.
and the track was virtually blocked, and they're going to take a couple of others with them. And honestly, I was not expecting to wreck that massive this long into the run here at Spa. That is that takes out probably 3 or 4 competitors from any chance of having a decent result tonight. And now he's in a really poor position on the race to try to merge back, because it's a little bit of a blind corner until you get to the exit.
The point that I was trying to make was that Wittendorf started 6th, found himself running in the mid-pack, and you see what can happen when you're mired that far back in the field. Was running in the company of Tyler Campbell. Not sure if that was the car that he made contact with first. Look to the inside here, not the most opportune of passing zones, and then he got run into from behind. I believe that was Christian Gerges who got into him, and more cars were just scattering around. It was pretty much going to be a blind corner exit. You're coming through that right-hander there and up onto that straightaway, and you don't have much time to react in defense of the competition who piled in late. But John Wittendorf, a driver who, despite not being at Belle Isle, still came into tonight's race 6th in championship points, caught up in a very early crash here in round 4 at Spa.
Yeah, and any damage he has now is going to be very damaging just because of how much full throttle time you have at this racetrack. It's definitely one of the fastest tracks GT3 cars will ever go to. And then the thing that just makes it worse for him is the fact that he did the proper thing. He was on the brakes hard, maintained his position on the racetrack, should make it predictable for drivers to get by, but unfortunately another driver does get him. It's going to cause a lot more damage, and it looks like he actually toes into the pit lane.
Yeah, it looks as though Wittendorf has retired from the race, so that is going to shake up the championship point standings for sure. And, I mean, that's also a bit of kudos to the fact that Wittendorf, who did not make the race at Belle Isle, still was up in the top 6 in championship standings, vying for a top 5 spot. And that is off of the major success that he had in the last season of competition with the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. And here's another look from it from high above. And Campbell, just didn't get the run off the left-hander. Here comes Wittendorf down to the inside. They touch. And as Wittendorf was trying to get off the gas, I believe that was Gerges who tagged him. And they caught the other car there as they went by. And here comes the traffic just piling their way in what turned into a multi-car accident early in this race. Haven't even hit the 20-minute mark yet of this 1 hour and 30-minute affair. And we've already seen one of the front runners in the championship standings and potential favorites to win have some major trouble after getting shuffled back into traffic, while Webb continues to lead comfortably. And it looks as though that Beets has gotten around Ledecky for second.
Yeah, and he's up probably about a half a second or a second off of the 3.5 seconds he was behind Jesse Webb just a couple of minutes ago. So it seems like he might have the pace to be able to contend. So we might be able to see a battle between these two, as we've been seeing for the entire season. So and we still have 75 minutes, so I'm sure we're going to see a lot of back and forth battling, and there's the potential for up to 2 pit stops depending how things go tonight. So we still have the strategy to incorporate into this story tonight.
Looking back now off the rear bumper of Ledecky through the chicane and up onto the main straightaway at Chris Brunnemer, who's got the headlights on, looking to try to close in on Ledecky for that 3rd spot. An opportunity on the podium, and since getting by, Beets has not been able to run away just yet from that of Ledecky, and this may be an opportunity for Nick to perhaps learn a little bit as to how Beets is finding a way around. Granted, he's been one of the front runners in this series since the word go, when we kicked things off back at Donington Park about 3 weeks ago. And as they all curb hop their way through a Rouge this time, Brunnemer looks as though he may have upset the balance of the car a little bit that time, got it back under control, but lost some time there to Ledecky. And you see how far back James Hansen and company is from this 3-car battle for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th through turn 5. Now setting up for turn 6, a quick cutback there before they hit turn 7, and an area of the racetrack where we have seen some carnage so far here tonight, but these 3 keeping it relatively clean, and also slowly starting to close up the margin up to Jesse Webb, the race leader, a margin that was over 3 seconds at one point. And as you mentioned, Trey, since Beets got up to that runner-up position, he's closed in by about 0.3 of a second, but Ledecky and Brunnemer are keeping pace with him as well. Also want to take this opportunity to highlight the fact that Chris Brunnemer, who is running right now up in that 4th spot, did not have the best start to the season. As a matter of fact, he was running in a top running position at the season opener at Donington Park and was caught up in a very heavy crash late in the going. If you look at the box score, he came home in 24th position, bounced back with a podium at Road America, and was 1 spot shy of going back-to-back to being able to celebrate podium finishers at Belle Isle, as he came home in 4th. So Brunnemer, somebody who's been flirting with the top few steps on the podium, trying to find a way to get there, and he sees it out the windshield of that car, and he's looking for more here, but still running in that 4th position as we have about an hour and 10 minutes to go in this race.
Yeah, and he comes into tonight. If you look at the point standings, a fair margin down from the likes of Jesse Webb and Chris Beets, but he's 5th place in points, so 1 or 2 bad races from those guys, and if he's able to stay consistent for the rest of the season, and he very well could enter the championship picture as we continue onward with this season. This is a battle we've been checking in on every once in a while, and the story remains the same. It's still Curtis Jones trying to go for the overtake on Corey Peters. It definitely seems like he has at least the equivalent pace, and now it's just a matter of being able to overtake. And it is one thing to catch someone, but passing is an entirely different thing.
As we see 1 car and 1 driver come off the pit lane there. These drivers going to navigate their way by on driver's left. But this group here, that's actually Alan Roth, who was one of the first cars at the pit lane. Not sure if he had any incidents on track or if this was part of the strategy for the BMW driver. And we joke often, Alan Roth, we say that he has the fan club watching. We mention that these races are on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. And every week, without hesitation, without fail, the Alan Roth fan club is up there cheering on this driver. He's earned the nickname Miracle. We're hoping we get the opportunity to interview him one day and ask how that came about. But nevertheless, he definitely has a lot of eyeballs on him each and every week. And Alan Roth, who started 21st, currently running 31st due to the pit stop, maybe go a little bit off strategy here, and we'll see how it all cycles out when we come to the checkered flag. But he did give way to some of those front runners there on the bottom portion of the top 10 and allowed them to get by to continue their battle for what appears to be a fight for position from about 6th on back.
Yep, as you said, a lot of tight battles throughout the field. But yeah, Roth, at least where he is now, without any really close competitors, he can just focus on hitting his marks and getting consistent laps. But the unfortunate thing is it's just probably not going to be another good points day for him. And this is after, as you said, issues in Detroit where he came into heavy contact with the concrete barrier, and that ended his evening. It's still Ledecky, but now he has another challenger, and he might lose out on the podium position to Brunnemer this time if he's not able to fend off the hard charge from Brunnemer.
Brunnemer still applying the pressure to Ledecky here as they come to the sweeping left-hander. And while we're at it, we'll do a little bit more housekeeping. Alexander King, who was involved in that heavy crash earlier on the exit of Eau Rouge as they were coming up through turn 4, he has retired from the race. Also, Sven Hartman, who was in the top 10 in qualifying, or I should say in the top 10 in practice, 16th in qualifying, he too has had an issue and retired from the session. So attrition starting to take a bit of a toll here as we inch closer to the 1/3 mark of this 90-minute race, but nothing thus far has really shaken up too much amongst the front runners, with Jesse Webb continuing to be the pace setter, and this battle for second remaining about 3 cars deep with Beets, Ledecky, and Brunnemer in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And then you see how far back this fight is, with Peters trying to fend off Curtis Jones as they come through Eau Rouge. And just behind Anderson, who had a great top 10 qualifying effort just behind in 8th, they continued their battle here, up down this straightaway heading up to turn 5.
And you saw a great example of why you cannot go side by side through Eau Rouge and Radillon, because quite simply you lose out on so much momentum, and it's incredibly dangerous. But unfortunately, Jones did have to continue. He didn't quite have the slipstream that he needed to try to make the passing opportunity. So as much as he definitely wants to make this pass happen as soon as possible, he's having a very respectable challenge from the driver ahead of him in Corey Peters. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch this battle. Probably up, if I'd have to imagine, he's probably going to be able to fend off until we get to our first pit cycle. And that might be where we see a little bit of a change-up, and I can't wait to see this pit cycle unfold.
Yeah, and I was starting to keep in the back of my head, Trey, pit cycle, like when it happens. I mean, the halfway point obviously is about the 45-minute to go mark, and if we get there, we know for sure it's a one-stop strategy. I think if we get within the ballpark of that number, it can be a one-stop strategy, because as we've seen in some of our 60-minute races, we've seen drivers pit with about 20, maybe 15 minutes to go, the latest, if they really want to stretch it out to the end. But I have to wonder, especially because we were talking about how much on throttle time that there may be, perhaps you come in now, fill it up to the top, plan for a short fill at the end if you have to come in later in the going, or I'm just kind of really surprised to see how this is all going to pan out. And, you know, a lot of the people that we talked to were kind of hush-hush about their strategies. I think everybody kind of calculated their own game plan and formula. And in the races we've had so far this season, and I'll pose the question to you as a fellow racer, when you have an event like this, an endurance race, where there can be some unknowns. I mean, we don't anticipate any type of dynamic to change the flow of the race per se, but you know that you're going into this event with 90 minutes to spare. Do you have your pit strategy calculated going into the event, and you want to be able to keep those cards close to your chest, or is it something that you're going to try to not necessarily make up as you go, but perhaps react to the amount of fuel that you're burning and the pace that you're setting once you get into race time? How do you establish that type of strategy?
It is a really difficult question to answer, because it's ultimately, I think, going to end up depending on the individual driver. But as you said, Eric, it's probably a good idea to have some type of game plan going in. But if you're in a tight battle like we're seeing between these guys for the final couple of podium positions on racetrack, you almost need to build in a couple of laps of variability, I think, to be able to build in some type of undercut or overcut, whichever you think would end up benefiting you in the long run. And that, if you're able to build in those couple of laps of strategy variability, it's going to give you a lot of option over the course of the race to take advantage of positions on the racetrack where you might not be able to make the passes.
All items that we are going to be keeping our eye on here as this race continues to unfold. We are 5.5 minutes from the 1/3 distance mark in this race, round number 4, the 2021 Pacific Challenge GT3 Series at Spa-Francorchamps on the GP layout. And so far, the point leader in Jesse Webb is continuing to pick up right where he left off after his victory at the Grand Prix of Detroit and Belle Isle just 1 week ago, and is trying to pick up the first endurance race on the calendar as well, and thus far has been pretty much perfect after setting the quick time and qualifying by nearly a half second in order to lead the field down for green, and thus far lead every lap on this contest. We have had some incidents that have taken out some front-running competitors. We saw Sarah Rabb with some type of misfunction early on. She's still in the race. We also saw John Wittendorf, who was top 10 in points involved in a heavy crash. Alexander King and Sven Hartman, also some of the early casualties in today's race, as we anticipate the potential of a couple of drivers making their way on the pit road at some point for what may be their one and only stop, and which they will have to mind the pace throughout the rest of this race. Let's drop back here to Jimmy Allen, who is running in 20th spot behind that of Mick Blue, who is a returning competitor to this series, competed in the 2020 edition of competition, now back here in 2021. Blue running in the 19th position. We did note the fact that Allen did not turn any laps in the practice session, rolled off 31st, is currently scored in 20th. This would be a great top 20 run for Jimmy Allen, who's currently in that spot. And John McClintock just behind in 21st. So we have battles going on all over the racetrack here for this round of competition. With this 4-car pack, we mentioned McClintock there, not that far behind in that 21st position. That's Patrick Herring who's behind them. But the best battle on track continues to be for about second on back, with Beats, Ledecky, and Brunnemer still having a go of it here.
Yeah, these guys will not stop putting on a show. And while there hasn't been a lot of passing between these couple of drivers, they're forcing each other to compromise their lines onto the entry of the corners. And that in itself can create a lot of really interesting racing to follow. So while it might not be the most visually appealing, you can better believe that these drivers are definitely putting themselves to the test. And that's what you love about a racetrack like Spa, because there will be points in a race where you're not going to be able to make the overtaking opportunities. But it's definitely a track where you can force a lot of mistakes from drivers to try to create, alternative overtaking opportunities.
And you could just kind of see by some of the imperfections that we're starting to notice by drivers when they're taking certain lines through the corner. You see Brunnemer hugging a little bit of a tighter line there, kind of getting the left and right side tires up onto the curbing, while the car that he is chasing in Ledecky maybe being able to run a little bit wider, perhaps trying to diamond or arc his entries and exits to each one of the corners. And so far it looks as though that the ebb and flow is continuing to balance out amongst this battle for third and fourth, respectively. Also want to acknowledge the fact that even though Jesse Webb is up by 3+ seconds yet again, the balance of the field all the way throughout the top 10, even at this point in the race, nearly 30 minutes in, I mean, 20 seconds is all that covers the top 10 on a track as difficult, technical, and challenging as Spa-Francorchamps, all the way back to Mikel Rudebusch, who holds down that final spot in the top 10. And that just kind of, strikes the chord to note how competitive and balanced this field really is, even though the top sector of the results has been relatively the same the last few races. And you can see it there on your screen. I mean, you got Peters, followed by Jones, Anderson, 3-car battle up ahead. Then you drop back to this 3-car battle that consists of Mikhaila, Rudebusch, and just behind Rudebusch is where you'll find Jackson Lowry, who's in this 3-car freight train. So there are a lot of drivers running very similar pace, and these battles for position are going to continue to intensify the closer we get to the pay window portion of our program. And it continues to be a 3-car lockstep formation for this second spot for the time being as well. And I expect the intensity to ratchet up the closer we get down to the finish line. And here's a battle of position with Rudebusch looking to the inside, Jackson Lowry looking outside as they come through the right-handed corner here. This is at turn 5. Turn 6 is where we saw John Wittendorf also get tangled up in some incident earlier, right about here as they came off the right-hander. And fortunately, Rudebusch is able to keep the car pointed in the right direction. Lost some ground there to Mikhaila, but he is not able to shake Jackson Lowry just yet, as he desperately, Lowry that is, wants to get up into the top 10.
Yeah, he's definitely fighting with all he had, and it was an excellent job of defending by Rudebusch, going through the first left-hander of that section. In fact, the only left-hander. He was not in the optimal line. He was on the outside line, but then he was able to single file out quite effectively. So definitely a well-earned job for the time being for what is the last spot in the top 10 right now. But these two have been putting on a pretty compelling battle so far today. It's going to be fun to watch. And as you said, Eric, we are, continuing to inch closer and closer to that pit window. And in fact, we're 15 minutes from that halfway mark, and if you can make it to halfway, realistically you should only be able to have to do the race on only one pit stop for fuel.
Yeah, all the races this season handling a 75% fuel load, and we've seen that translate into one stop in the 60-minute contest, and we thought we'd be kind of on the edge here, but, as you mentioned, we're about 15 minutes away from assuring the fact this is going to be a one-stop race. Here's Ryan Coulter trying to do all that he can to hold on to 24th spot, with Michael De La Sala not that far behind him, and George Tacek just ahead of him there in 23rd spot. As we just eclipsed the 1/3 mark of this race, here's a battle for position on the main straightaway with Corey Peters up into the 6th spot, trying to get around Curtis Jones. Let's take this opportunity and thank some of those who are responsible for the coverage you see here tonight, as well as all season long. And we're going to start with the series sponsors and presenters. And we mentioned earlier Sarah Rabb. Well, Sarah Rabb is one of the supporters of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, and she offers up graphic design experience for over 7 years and has awards at local, state, and national levels. And she is absolutely committed to making sure that your next livery and logo is a masterpiece, and that is Sarah Rabb, who you see on your screen here, currently back up to 29th despite the incident that she had earlier in the night. Sarah Rabb, Liveries by Sarah Rabb, one of the presenting sponsors on the league side of the spectrum, along with Benke Cinematography. And that's Damian Benke, who has competed in a couple of races so far in 2021. The man behind Benke Cinematography, and he looks to provide the most realistic photographs on iRacing, and he has done just that for the series. Again, that's Benke Cinematography. And also we want to thank Tam Livery on behalf of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, as artist Christian Konya has been a designer for the past 14 years with UI designer on his resume. And this past year, he decided to test his skills at creating a one-of-a-kind iRacing livery and suit designs. And after hundreds of satisfied customers, including some of iRacing's biggest names, his success story continues to write itself. So check out his work, TAM Livery, the third and final presenting sponsor for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. And all those sponsors have thrown up some additional incentives throughout the prize packages that are offered to our competitors at the conclusion of this 2021 campaign. While the battle for third continues, we also want to take this opportunity to thank some of our sponsors here on Pit Stop TV, and we will start with our friends at Tucson Sound Art. The reminder is that if you take your picture, your music, any picture you would like. In fact, it could be a beautiful design or a beautiful photo from Benke Cinematography, Liveries by Sarah Rabb or Tam Livery, perhaps a photo of your race car, whether it be on the sim or real life. Friend, family, loved one, doesn't matter. You take whatever picture you want, and our friends at Tucson Sound Art will take that image, put it on a beautiful customized canvas with a built-in Bluetooth speaker for you to hang up in your garage, office, bedroom, living room, you name it, and it will be the best of both worlds. The best art piece that you could find, the best sound quality that you could find, and that is courtesy of our friends at Tucson Sound Art. And again, visit TucsonSoundArt.com for more information. And better yet, especially with Valentine's Day right around the corner, if you use the promo code PitStopTV at checkout, you'll receive 10% off your purchase. And again, the website, TucsonSoundArt.com for more. We also want to thank Permanent Makeup in Maine, because when it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy. At Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, the owner and Ashley Bullier, certified micropigmentation specialist, provides professional, safe, and personalized services. As we see pit stops beginning right now at the 56-minute mark. Permanent Makeup in Maine, you can contact them on their website, permanentmakeupinmaine.com, or you can check out their Facebook page where they have numerous opportunities for you to be able to win on their monthly prizes that they give out there. As Mikkel Rudebush, who was up in the top 10, has an off in competition. But again, permanentmakeupinmaine.com will tell you more about them and their services a little bit later on. Lastly, we will acknowledge Whiplash Media, whiplash-media.com, as they are the parent company to Pit Stop TV. But Trey Shuttlesworth, we're going to break out of this ad read here. Mikkel Rudebush, top 10 in the race, and he has a problem here while trying to hold on to one of those front-running positions while running in that coveted 10th spot.
Yeah, we'll get a first peek of what happened here, and it looked like he might have Actually, he gets through the right-hander quite fine. It looks like the car is going to... It's not even an oversteer. It looks like he just had a lot of issue with handling coming off the exit of the corner, and he's going to land himself with probably some suspension damage into that tire barrier as a result.
So Rudebush, who again, another race where he finds himself in the barrier. This one, though, not necessarily through that of just bad luck. Looked as though it may have been some driver error on his part. Fortunately, it didn't look like the contact was too heavy with the tire barrier, but the amount of time it took Rudebush to get that car righted and back up in line, it has certainly buried him down in the running order. And as we were going through some of those ad reads, we did note that pit stops did begin. We saw Tyler Langenberg on the pit lane a little bit earlier. Rudebush, since the crash, has plummeted down the running order for the most part, was running up in the top 10 last time through. In fact, the cars are just trickling across the line here. He's going to be well out of the top 10 this time by. But look at this battle for second. Nick Ledecky has found another gear. He's all over the backside of Chris Beets for second in the tire tracks as they approach turn 5. Doesn't poke out of the line to try to fill up the mirror just yet. But Ledecky, who had that second spot when we came to green, is not allowing Chris Beets to drive off into the sunset just yet and close up on Jesse Webb for the top spot, with Brunimer closely following behind as well.
The incredible thing is that after 35 minutes of running, less than 0.8 of a separate these three, who have proven to really have equivalent pace throughout the running tonight. It very well could be the pit cycle that shakes up this running order, because these guys have just not been able to pressure themselves out into a mistake outside of Beets getting past Ledecky that one time very early into the running. So we'll continue to watch this battle. And I mean, we've already hit on this point, but they're just doing an excellent job of keeping the pressure on each other, but no mistakes for quite a while.
So we are slowly approaching the halfway point of this race. That will be the 45-minute mark that gets us to the 50% distance portion of this fourth race of the 2021 season. And how about Corey Peters? I mean, let's tip our cap to Peters here, who was running about ninth throughout the majority of the qualifying session, jumped up to seventh there late in the going, has stayed in the mix, worked his way up into sixth, closing in slowly on James Hansen, who rides in fifth. Peters has just had a very solid day in the Lamborghini, even though he's been under constant pressure from Curtis Jones, who's fourth in the championship standings. There's a lot to gain from Jones's perspective if he can get up towards the front of the pack, especially considering the fact that the championship pursuers that he's trying to chase down pretty much occupy a number of the top 5 positions. But so far, Peters doing a great job there in sixth. And look at Brunnemer. Starting to look outside here. A little bit of a defensive line by Ledecky as they come through the corner. And also, we're starting to see, it looks as though there's a little bit of traffic that's starting to develop behind. That is not for position behind Brunnemer. That's a car that may have already come down the pit lane or gone a lap down. That is just behind that of Brunnemer. Trying to get a positive ID on that machine on my end here. With Brunnemer now, also looks as though that car is going to clear the way there. And here comes Ledecky for second.
This might be his best opportunity yet to claim the second position back, and that is where he started today, but he hasn't been able to get back up there for about 20 or 25 minutes or so. Is not quite able to pull it off heading into the Lake Coombe section. And now the pressure is going to be on from behind. It's Brunnemer, who, if he can get the run into Bruxelles, might have an opportunity.
Brunnemer with a good launch off the corner, trying to close up here on Ledecky, who's lost about 3 car lengths to Chris Beeds, who was just up ahead in that runner-up spot. And you know, even though these top 3, or these second, third, and fourth place cars, I should say, this 3-car pack has been virtually inseparable since the drop of the green flag, there's been a bit of an ebb and flow as far as the margin up to Jesse Webb, who's the race leader, and that gap has now grown to about as large as it's been since we got this race underway. It's up to about 4.3 seconds, making 4.6 seconds as they run. And Jesse Webb has just been that superior so far on the weekend, or on the night, I should say. Fastest in practice, fastest in qualifying, and so far being able to put on a clinic. So Trey Shuttlesworth, as we inch ever closer to that halfway mark to ensure that we will get this race in on one pit stop, how important is it to make sure that you've got the fuel number calculated and dialed back to the right number, and that you get on and off the pit lane properly, especially when you come off the pit lane with colder tires? How pivotal is that going to be for Webb if he wants to try to pick up his 3rd win of the season?
I think it mostly comes back to the point we brought up a few times, which is the fact that these guys are on the throttle quite a bit here at the Spa circuit, which is going to mean it's going to be more difficult than, say, your Detroit Belle Isle circuit to do any fuel saving if you get the fuel number slightly wrong. So that's definitely going to be something you want to take into account when you're doing your fuel calculations when you come down onto the pit road. And as you said about coming out on cold tires, I'm not entirely sure if we will see tire changes or not. Of course, this is a bit of a longer race, which should, in theory, open the opportunity for tire changes. But the high-speed corners, such as Radeon, can be very, very difficult on the cold tires with a car that's already so nimble when it comes to cornering through that section.
That's a great point, Trey. I didn't even think of that, as a matter of fact. And that's something that we're going to be keeping our eyes on here as we drop back down to BC Voigt, who is battling for a position with Christian Gurgis. And Gurgis was one of the drivers who was involved in that multi-car accident that took out one of the front runners in tonight's contest, John Wittendorf, who was up towards the front of the pack. Gurgis was kind of wrong place, wrong time when that contact took place, and thus far has been able to battle up into the 13th spot, but Voigt is trying to close in on him for that position. Voigt is 2 spots shy of the top 10 in championship points, and behind Voigt was that of Spencer Vick, and Curtis Jones has an off. He was running up at about the 7th spot was that of Jones, and the driver who was 4th in the championship standings coming into tonight's race has had a big off this time.
Yeah, as you said, it's going to drop him 4 spots already, and now it's going to mean Wade Hayes will have the opportunity to apply pressure, and that's so unfortunate because we were coming up on this opportunity for guys to come down pit road and change their fortune a little bit, and it's going to again be into the braking zone in Lake Coombe, where we have issues for this time the driver Curtis Jones, and is yet again going to be coming out of the left-hand portion of the circuit into the same tire barrier. he is going to be able to keep the car running and not lose quite as much time. But that was a hit that could definitely have knocked the steering column out of alignment and could cause some suspension damage.
That was a relatively flush impact there with drivers left, kind of pancaked the barrier enough to cause some damage to the left front fender of that car, also the left side door and the left rear fender of Curtis Jones' machine. And he too with a precarious position where fourth in the championship points, but the three drivers that he is chasing in the points are the same three drivers he's chasing on the racetrack, and he just kind of bumped himself down to about the 10th spot while Jesse Webb continues to lead the field up at the head of the pack. His lead now up to 5 seconds behind the three-car freight train that continues to fight for second, and we're 3 minutes shy of halfway, and it looks as though, Trey, this is in fact going to be a one-stop race, and the question is, where do these drivers want to be? If you're somebody like Ledecky or Brunnemer, are you going to follow the competition on the pit road, or have you set your game plan for the night? Your lap to pit is when it is, and you're just kind of racing this out here for the time being.
It's going to be side by side for this final podium position, and it is going to be Brunnemer going past Ledecky. But no, as you said, Eric, it is a really tough question to answer because it is, of course, going to depend on the individual driver. And I think as much as you might have that set lap where you want to pin in, if you're in a battle like this, you might be influenced by the drivers around you to slightly alter it. If you can come, say, into the pit road a couple laps earlier, and that might give you the opportunity to get a clean racetrack for a couple of laps until your competitors come back out. That could give you the opportunity out on the racetrack to maybe gain a couple of seconds if your other competitors run into trouble on pit in or pit out.
And that is the perfect opportunity for Brunnemer to be able to pull out and get around Nick Ledecky, because now when it comes down for the pit stop time, Brunnemer is going to be one spot better to the good before he hits the pit lane, with Ledecky now in a position to chase. Remember, Ledecky rolled off the grid in second spot, so he's -2 on the night so far. Still a long way to go as we are a minute and a half away from the halfway point in this race. But so far, nobody has evidently had anything for that of Jesse Webb. And, you know, even when we think of the fact that lap traffic could somehow be a factor, you know, Webb has not necessarily encountered that many lap cars. 26 cars remain on the lead lap. Only a handful are, in fact, a lap down, but we did have a number, make that 3, that have disconnected or retired from the race. So lap traffic has not been the story that I think we thought it would be at this point in the race, but still with a good bit of racing left to go, it could be a factor. But a lot of the field is still running in relatively close proximity. But boy, Webb is just still laying down flyers as he opens up the advantage furthermore. And is that an indication, Trey, that he may be considering a pit stop relatively soon, starting to lay down some very quick lap times at the head of the field?
It very well could be an indication of that. We definitely know that, for these drivers, this is the lightest they've been on fuel tonight, and that couldn't be the best opportunity to set a hot lap, especially considering the fact that we really haven't seen a lot of tire degradation out of these tires for these drivers tonight. So yeah, this is definitely the optimum opportunity. The only thing is, if you're looking to set a hot lap here, is that and go for those additional bonus points that are offered as a result. The one thing that is scary about doing that is when you have a light fuel load, is that the car can be quite tricky in some of the corners. It could be a very easy opportunity for you to spit out and end your run.
So while Webb continues to hold steady at the front of the pack, it looks as though things have shaken up a little bit here. Ledecky's gotten back around Brunnemer for the 3rd spot. And even while making the pass, they have not lost that much ground. As we got a spin, that's Rudebusch for the 2nd time tonight. This time in turn number 1, Mikel Rudebusch goes around in the 1st corner, able to rejoin safely without getting caught up in any additional incidents in traffic. But this has not been the night. As a matter of fact, I'll rephrase that. This has not been the season that Mikel Rudebusch was looking for. Let's go back and see how it all took place in turn 1.
Yeah, he has just been a driver with a lot of poor fortune so far this season. And as you said, Eric, last season when the series was running under the Northwest banner, he was running relatively consistent for the most part. It was definitely one of the key contenders. At least while LaSource is a bit of he backs up into the exit of the corner where a conventional racing line is. So that was a little bit dangerous. But he probably also checked his relative to see that no competitors were coming. Excuse me. So yeah, all around, not the best place to spin, but it was at least a point at the racetrack where there wasn't a lot of competitors.
So Rudebush doing a great job there to be conscious of the traffic and the fact that he had an open pathway to rejoin the field. As a matter of fact, that would credit that courtesy as here comes Jesse Webb. Webb is going to come onto the pit lane from the lead. So the first move of the front runners is going to come 2 minutes shy or 1 minute shy. Check that, 1 minute past the halfway point. And Webb is going to be the first car to move. And look at that, behind him, he's going to pull second, third, fourth, all onto the pit lane for the most crucial pit stop of the race. Who's going to be able to get in and out of the pits properly? It looks as though everybody's electing to take the bait after we hit the halfway point. The whole top 10 appears to be on the pit lane with 43 plus minutes to go.
I wonder if all these drivers were able, in their practice running, to figure out what the longest they can go on one stint of fuel. Because, as you said, it's just about everyone who's coming down onto the pit lane this time around. That might have been one driver staying out, but it very easily could have been a lap car. But yet, all around, not a lot of strategy variability. But I think we'll take it. This is an interesting spin because we're conventionally used to drivers really mixing it up.
You also see Mikael Rudebush, one of the competitors that is electing to come down at this portion of the racetrack. And just like that, Webb is off. He's ready to roll. He's clear and free. Also, here comes Brunnemer. He's going to follow, beats through. That's going to be Ledecky, fourth in line. One spot shy of the podium. A little bit of separation. As a matter of fact, I don't know, Trey, that's the most separation we've seen amongst second, third, and fourth all race long.
Yeah, I had the thought a little bit earlier that it almost looked like it was several spec Miatas racing out, any kind of racetrack where they had their slipstream battles, because there was really not much of a separation. And now we're at the point where the slipstream isn't going to be too much of a factor for these guys, considering they're separated by a second or two between the second, third, and fourth position. Although it does look like Chris Beets is able to close up on the lead by about a second or a second and a half potentially.
Yeah, it looks that way. That gap was nearly up to about 5.5 or 6 seconds at the time of the pit stop hit. As a matter of fact, according to the sim, 5.3 was the margin when they pitted. So you're right, Trey. He's gained about a second on the exchange, and he has no pressure from behind. We'll call it for about the first time all day long. And, Trey, from a distance, we weren't sure, or we were not sure of the pit strategy for some of these drivers coming into this race. It looks as though everybody had the same game plan. I mean, once we eclipsed the halfway point, the pit road was just populated with competitors, and our timing and scoring that you see on the screen, that's relatively live action that you could see. And by virtue of Webb remaining in P1, that proves that pretty much no driver stayed on the racetrack even to lead a lap, according to my records here in the box score. Everybody hit pit lane at about the same exact time, and it's benefited some competitors. And we talk about who had a good pit stop. How about this driver? You're on board with him. Trevor Anderson trying to chase down Hansen for a top 5 position.
Yeah, Anderson is a driver that's probably the biggest winner from that pit cycle, because I think he entered the pit cycle in the 8th position. He was definitely behind Corey Peters, and he may have been behind Justin Michaela as well. So definitely an excellent job by the driver who I believe is the highest running BMW in the field in that 6th position right now. And he's looking to challenge for that last spot in the top 5. That's James Hansen ahead of him for that 5th position.
So with about 40 minutes to go, Hansen and Anderson in a fight for position for that top 5 spot, while the leaders continue on up towards the far side of the track. How about Justin Michaela, who's now nestled well into the top 10? He's running 8th, looking back at Jackson Lowry, who's a name that we've called in the top 10 many a times in 2021. And, as we look back here, Lowry really closed up that time there on Michaela. Justin Michaela, another driver who the results do not seem to fare as far as how successful of a season that he has had in his entry. Michaela, 24th in points, had a strong start to the season at Donington Park in 13th, had it set up for a 20th place finish at Road America, and then 32nd at Detroit by virtue of an incident. Michaela, well on his way to his best finish of the season so far, but Lowry's looking inside for the position.
And look, that looks relatively calm. And normally, as you can see, these drivers do operate within the same team. So it does make sense that perhaps the driver with a bit more pace for the time being will be let through quite easily. But it seems like these two drivers, as you said, especially Michaela, is doing a very impressive job of recovering from what has been a very poor start to the season. And in the least, after tonight, there's still 6 rounds to improve upon. So even if you're not a driver who can contend for the championship, there's definitely still a lot you could prove out there.
So while these two continue to run in lockstep formation just behind Curtis Jones a ways back, about another 4 seconds or so. Remember, Jones had an off-track excursion of his own, top 4 in points coming into the night. Had a flush right side impact or left side impact with the tire barrier in one of the corners, still rounding out the top 10. So pretty strong effort by some of these drivers throughout the most part in the top 10 running positions, but Michaela and Lowry continuing to have a go of it here in 8th place. And even though we saw 2nd, 3rd, and 4th pretty much be inseparable, this is one of the best battles we have on the racetrack for the time being. And it continues to be that of Justin Michaela, who is running in 9th spot now, and Jackson Lowry just ahead in the identically prepared car running in 8th.
Yeah, it seems like even after that swap of positions that was really orderly, it seems like Michaela really does not want to give up the fight quite yet between the for the 8th position here on the racetrack. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But no, as you said, Eric, that pit cycle really stretched things out. Coming in, I believe the top 10 were within probably about 20 or 25 seconds. That has extended quite a bit. Curtis Jones stands 33 seconds. Where you see a really massive gap now is between the 4th and 5th position. Nick Ledecky stands about 8.5 seconds back of Jesse Webb, but then you go back to James Hansen, 22 seconds back of the leader. That's a fair margin. And in the least, actually, it's not the best thing in the world for Hansen because he does have to focus behind, doesn't have much to look for ahead. He's almost going to need a mistake for him to make up any positions at this point on the racetrack right now. And he has a couple of really capable drivers behind him. Trevor Anderson, has been making a very steady climb from the 9th position since the start of the running tonight. And then Corey Peter, very loose there from Hansen, but he's able to hang on to it as the pressure continues to rise.
So as we are 7 minutes shy of pretty much hitting the 2/3 distance, we're watching Curtis Jones here on your screen. 34 cars came down for the green flag. David Flanagan, Brady Lubenow did not take the green. Alexander King, John Wittendorf, Sven Hartman, Patrick Herring. Also a couple of the drivers were involved in incidents throughout the night. Herring remains on the racetrack for the most part. Hartman, Wittendorf, King out of the race. Jesse Webb has been the dominator. Pretty much led since the drop of the green after starting on pole. Chris Beats rolled off in 3rd, up to 2nd. And as we mentioned in the tease and the lead into our program tonight on Pit Stop TV, Jesse Webb and Chris Beats, neither driver has finished worse than 2nd so far in the 3 races this season. We're working race 4 of 10 on the 2021 calendar for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, and Webb and Beats find themselves 1 and 2 yet again in what is the first endurance race of the calendar. And as we are about 6 minutes away from the 30-minute-to-go mark, that is the uncharted territory. That's the point where perhaps your hands start to tingle a little bit. You start to get a little bit tired mentally, especially, Trey, considering the fact a lot of these front-running drivers competed in one, if not more, of the 24-hour events that took place on the sim this past weekend. You've got to imagine that the timing of this endurance race is, as a race fan, perfect. For a driver, maybe not so much, because it's an ultimate test to making sure that you don't fall out of the seat, being that you have to go a little bit longer than we've seen so far in these Monday night races. And that could be a bit of a difference for some of these drivers as we hit that bit of, as I mentioned, uncharted territory for this 90-minute event.
Oh yeah, for sure. Whether it be mental or physical, it can be quite stressful when you, especially coming off of, as you said, the endurance event. I'm sure, yeah, as you said, most of the drivers in the field probably competed in the iRacing Daytona 24 this weekend. Oh, thousands upon thousands competed this weekend. Absolutely a lot of fun to partake in. But yeah, I do recall after competing in the event that my wrists were absolutely shot. A lot of stress and a lot of pain as a result of consistent driving. And I'm sure for a lot of these guys who probably, put in anywhere between, say, 4 to maybe 12 plus hours over the course of the weekend, that's going to take a massive physical toll. And then you're mental on top of that. So yeah, it's definitely a massive challenge.
Yeah, no, for people who may be watching, people who, may not be familiar with the sim or the platform or all that goes into this type of racing effort. And I'm speaking as somebody who does not spend that much time on the sim myself, as we're watching for the back bumper of Wade Hayes' car as he holds down the final spot in the top 10. to be in this part of sim racing competition with the steering wheel, the pedals, and the computer monitor in front of you, some people utilizing 2 or 3 monitors, it can in fact be a little bit taxing, whether it be mentally, whether you're too focused, and then even physically. I mean, when you have yourself and your body positioned in a certain way and operating a certain way, navigating the brake, the throttle, the clutch, and then turning through all these different type of corners, like 19 of which make up this layout here at Spa-Francorchamps, it truly is a bit of a workout. I mean, I talk to people who this is their thing. A buddy of mine, Jared Chambers, who runs GT3 cars on the sim pretty much weekly, tells me it's probably one of the best workouts that he gets when he invests a couple of hours into racing on the sim, because he's able to block off everything that's going on outside of his peripherals. He focuses on the layout and the track and the vantage point that he has ahead of him outside of the virtual windshield, and just being in the zone, being in the rhythm, and not wanting to break stride. You almost lose track of time, you almost lose track of rhythm, and you just kind of continue to burn your way through all the energy and effort that it takes to get around a venue like Spa in a race like this, against competition this tough, and it can be a bit exhausting. I mean, you know, truly, I've seen and I know from personal experience that when you're done with an event like this, you know, you walk away and get a good night's sleep because you really did work hard, even though this is a sim racing platform. And it's something that I think gets overlooked on numerous occasions across many people who look at this sim racing event from a distance. And it's something that certainly plays a role and plays a factor, especially in an event like what we have here tonight, where these drivers are running for 90 plus minutes, not even including that of the 20-minute practice session or the 20-minute qualifying session plus practice that took place prior. On another note, how about this run tonight by Trevor Anderson, who is closing up on a top 5 position if he can get up and around James Hansen, who currently holds that spot. Anderson, 1 spot shy of the top 10 in points, has 1 top 10 finish to his record so far in 2021, looking for his first top 5 of the season. And one of the BMW racers appears to have come prepared here tonight. And just outside of that viewing window is we'll find Corey Peters, who's 7th. But Anderson having a great run here tonight.
Yeah, Anderson is a driver last season who didn't start off the best, but he was able to really come around near the back half of the season. And in fact, he won the round at Silverstone in quite a dominating manner. So definitely a driver who can go out there and do the job. It might be tough with the, tougher competition in the field this year to go out there and get the job done and get a victory. But he's definitely doing the job to go out there and really climb his way up into the point standing like he did in the second half of last season. And we're going to ride on board here with Corey Peters through one of the most harrowing corners on the circuit, Blanchimont. That left-hander there, it's really tough as a driver because you really have to decide whether or not you can go flat out or not in these GT3 cars. Sometimes you have to crack the throttle a little bit, but it's really tough to judge.
Yeah, and again, we kind of led into this race talking about how, intimidating this circuit and this track layout can be, and some of the early race carnage that we saw was further proof for the fact that is evident, and that's the reason why. It's very easy to get offline, very easy to get off into the grass, and also in some sectors of the racetrack it's incredibly narrow, but to see the field running in this close proximity, it's certainly entertaining to watch as we now hit the 2/3 distance mark in this race, with Jesse Webb still holding down top honors. I want to take this opportunity to mention what some of these drivers are in fact racing for. We talked about some of the presenting sponsors for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. Well, they announced their prize packages, series organizers did, last week. And for the pro class, we mentioned the fact that the pros and the amateurs are split up pretty much by virtue of iRacing. The points are being tallied the same, but their categorization in the championship point standings is being split up by pros and amateurs. So the pro class, if you capture top honors in the pro championship points, you're going to get $85 cash and 3 liveries from one of the sponsors of the series and one of the racers in the series in Sarah Rab. Second place going to get $65. Third place, $40. Now, for the amateurs, it's a $30 gift card and 3 liveries from Sarah Rab. You go down to second place, that's going to be a $20 gift card to the PSRC web store. And third place for the amateurs is going to get a $10 gift card to the PSRC web store. And the remaining finishers also are going to have opportunities for raffles that are going to be based on championship points for $9. And it'll continue on all the way through 22nd to 44. Also, that includes that of raffles that'll pay out to up to $6. So the series doing a great job for allowing an opportunity for some of the drivers who commit to running as many races as they can to be able to walk away with a little bit of a prize or a little bit of a going away package once the season wraps up. And, especially for the sponsorship presenters and the Sarah Rabs who are involved to kind of offer up some of their products and services as well as additional incentive, as if trying to go out and beat the competition wasn't enough. Now, for the season prizes, we talked about Mikel Rudebusch being one of the cleanest drivers in 2020. Well, some of the other contingency awards that are up for grabs, like Most Improved, a livery from Tam Livery, another one of the presenting sponsors of the series. Most gained positions, or most positions gained, I should say, a livery from Tam Livery, and the cleanest driver, like Mikel Rudebusch, you see on your screen, who captured this honor the last time out for the GT3 Series. Also going to get a livery from Tam Livery. And thank you to all those who make that possible. This is truly one of the most organized and well put together series that I think we across the Pit Stop TV platform have been a part of. And they put together some top-class, top-notch racing action all throughout the field. And the proof is in the pudding as far as how we are able to put these shows on and how competitive they can be down to the very end. And these drivers have a lot to race for beyond just pride. And that is some of the reason why, as we are wrapping up the fourth race of the season at Spa-Francorchamps, with Imola being the halfway race of the season, round number 5, next Monday night, February 1st, here on the platform, and that will be the 5th race of 10 on the season, as we are waiting to see if Jesse Webb can continue to lead his way to what would be his 3rd win of the season and a potential extension of the championship point lead over the driver chasing him in Chris Beets.
Yeah, since the end of the pit cycle, he's gapped Chris Beets by about 2.5 seconds, I believe. Might have to check on that. But in the least, Webb has been incredibly consistent tonight. Looking at his previous lap time as opposed to his best lap time, he's off by a second, so he's definitely managing the tire degradation quite well over the course of 1 hour already. But yeah, looking ahead then to Imola next week as well, as you said, that is, despite the fact that it's another, old school European circuit, as you might say Spa is, in a lot of ways, it's quite different. There's a lot more low-speed sections of the circuit, a lot more difficult to pass, and in the same sense, though, it's a place that definitely punishes you if you miss your braking markers or go off in any way.
I will tell you, it's absolutely incredible when you look at the full slate of scheduled races for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. And again, if you weren't with us for the season opener, we started things off at Donington Park, which I've never seen a race at Donington. Granted, it's not a venue which hosts a lot of, internationally televised racing series and events. I thought it was going to be insane. Track's relatively narrow, lap times are quick, and these guys put on an incredible racing show from start to finish. Then we moved on to Road America, which also we saw some of the top-running drivers make mistakes, and we saw the cream rise to the top. Then we go to the Streets of Belle Isle, the one and only street race on the calendar. Now we're here at Spa, which is a Grand Prix track layout favorite. You mentioned all the anticipation for Imola. And then from there, we go to WeatherTech Raceway at Laguna Seca with the famed corkscrew. We go on to our next endurance event at the Nürburgring, which is the true full layout we're going to run there, followed by Sebring International Raceway, which I had the honor to be a part of the Formula 4 and Formula 3 United States Championship events there in 2020. That track is truly as rough as it is meant to be, and the sim backs that up entirely. That's going to be a true test to all these competitors. And then we round out the series, round number 9 at the Phillip Island Circuit, and round number 10 at the Suzuka International Race Course, the Grand Prix layout that F1 would race on for round number 10. That's one of the most diverse road course sim schedules that I've ever seen put together. And Trey, I don't know of more of a test to a driver's ability. If you win this championship, you have something to be proud of.
Oh, for sure. We're visiting, I believe it's a total of 4 continents in total, and it's a lot of really varying circuits in terms of driving style and difficulties. As you said, we'll go to places such as Donington, which doesn't have a massive amount of corners, still takes a lot to get a fast lap around there, but then we'll be heading to the proper Nordschleife in a couple of weeks. So yeah, there's a varying level of challenge throughout the field. And then you have really high levels of competitors within this field. last season we had an excellent caliber of drivers, and it's only increased over the off season. So yeah, we definitely have a great combination of things here with the Pacific Challenge. And yeah, I look forward to the next 6 weeks as we ride on board here with Tyler Campbell, currently sitting in the 15th position on the racetrack, challenging for that 14th spot.
Campbell, another one of the drivers who was involved in a multi-car crash that took out John Wittendorf, one of the front runners, very early in the going of this race. In fact, we were just shy of the 20-minute mark, and Christian Gurgis is the car chasing. He too was involved in that very same incident that took out Wittendorf. From competition, these two trying to salvage the best finish they can on the night, and now we're on board with Nick Ledecky, who is back in fourth spot. And we talked about this earlier on in the night, and Trey, perhaps it's an opportunity to kind of poke the driver in you once again for this question. Last time we saw Nick Ledecky on the GT3 Challenge, or the Pacific Challenge for GT3, leading at Road America, coming through the kink, and he wiped out bad. Fastest driver pretty much all throughout the day, crashed very hard, finished 37. Did not see him at the Grand Prix of Detroit and Belle Isle last week. This was his first time back in a race car. How hard is it to shake off a moment like that, knowing that you did have a car to beat, you did have a pace that could win, and you threw it all away by virtue of a single mistake, and now you have to come back out here and kind of back up the performance that you were leading up to, and he's doing a great job at that by running fourth, but is it hard as a racer to shake off that bad memory in your mind, knowing that you were in position to capitalize on a victory and it slipped away from you in the most spectacular of fashions?
It's incredibly tough for Ledecky because, as you said, Eric, he was a driver coming into the season that definitely had the pace to contend for the championship. And with the way this points format is designed, you really get punished for really any poor showing as, we might have an overtaking opportunity here coming into the chicane. Not quite there for Ledecky, but no, it's going to be tough. And honestly, I had a simple quote come to mind that could really help someone like Ledecky recover from something like that. It's a simple quote from Ayrton Senna, which is just that the past is data. I'm only looking towards the future. And if you have that mindset of just keeping that in the rearview mirror, take what you need to from the event, but don't harp on it. I think you can recover from it mentally quite quickly.
That's actually a great life quote to live by, not just in motorsports, as this battle for position continues on here that we are watching. Pretty much a little bit further down, Curtis Jones, one of the drivers who's had not the best of nights, looking to try to maintain his position towards the top few positions in championship points. And Jones is one spot shy of a top 10 as they run, started 8th. And doing all that he can to try to pick up position here on what looks to be that of Wade Hayes, perhaps. It is just in front of him. It is, as they come through turn number 1 and up to a Rouge here once more with 21-plus minutes left to go in this race. And, Jones, another driver who we'll call him best in class because everybody else ahead of him has had some front runners. And it looks as though we've had more problems here for Tyler Langenberg, who I'd probably have to go back and verify on the video footage, but I believe Langenberg was on a 2-stop strategy from the start of this race. I'm pretty sure he was one of the first cars we saw hit the pit lane very early when we're doing our sponsorship reads. And it looks as though that the way that the numbers are going to work out, he's going to have to come down here for one more stop with 20 minutes to go. And that's probably going to butcher the opportunity of him having a top 20 finish, as he was 17th at the time of the pit stop, and he remains in the pit lane for the time being.
Yeah, that's quite unfortunate for Langenberg because that was a driver who did an effective job of making his way up 10 spots from his 27th starting position prior to that pit stop. But yeah, that was quite interesting to see from him. The only driver to elect to attempt at least that 2-stop pit strategy doesn't quite work out, but you have to respect the fact that he went for the attempt on something that going in was probably going to be a long shot among most drivers in the field. But now he'll be able to come out on the racetrack, and we'll see if he's able to make up any positions coming out of the pit lane.
Meanwhile, while we watch Brunnemer and Ledecky continue to go at it for the final spot on the podium, a couple of more drivers have called it a day for the night. Scott Snyder has withdrawn from the session, perhaps as a result of an incident on track. Also, George Tacek has called it quits as well. He is currently scored back in the 28th position. Snyder 27th. Alan Roth 26th, still on the racetrack. So 26 cars remain in this endurance affair with under 20 minutes to go. And we have 21 cars all the way back to Michael De La Sala on the lead lap. There's Alan Roth still in competition. We saw earlier he made one of the earlier pit stops. We thought it was a bit off strategy. May very well have been, but Roth continues to be on track in his BMW, currently running at a 26 spot, -5 on the night so far, as we have seen here on the evening. So Webb beats Brunnemer, your provisional podium. And there's Michael De La Sala on the racetrack, and he is currently the last car on the lead lap, but the leader not that far behind. Spencer Vick just ahead of him. Remember, Vick was one of the highest running drivers in amateur points coming into tonight's contest. And at one point, we saw Vick was up towards the top 10, but apparently has had some trouble. Currently rounding out your top 20 for the time being. There's Spencer Vick in car number 100. Granted, he has improved on where he started, as timing and scoring updates on our end showing him right now in 19th position, but he was as high up as 15th. And Vic trying to retain his honor as the top-running amateur driver. And being that Alexander King has crashed out of the event and Tyler Campbell has had some trouble, looks as though despite the fact that this is not where Vic is accustomed to running, he may be able to continue to hold that badge of honor for another week's time. Vic is currently, as we mentioned, in 19th position, well behind the top 10 runners as we continue to watch this race unfold. So, Webb beats Brunnemer, your top 3, but for how long? Ledecky and Brunnemer still attached at the hip, or should I say attached to the front and rear bumper for a position, and they've got a pretty good gap in the name of 8 seconds back to Hansen, who holds down 5th. Ledecky trying to scratch and claw his way back up towards Brunnemer for that 3rd spot as they come by the line here to put another lap on the board.
Yeah, this is a really awesome and compelling battle that we're getting to see. We were talking so much about the fact that Ledecky had, his fair share of struggles since round 1. So for him to get back on the podium would mean so much. And then Brunnemer rather, just missed out on the podium last week at Belle Isle. So it would mean a lot for both of these drivers to go out there and claim that last spot on the podium. So definitely a lot to fight for both of these drivers. With only about 60 minutes, it's probably going to be 7 or 8 laps here around Spa.
So while we continue to watch this battle for 3rd spot, I know we talked about Sarah Rabb many a times here tonight, especially because of the fact that she is one of the supporters and sponsors. Her liveries are in fact up for grabs as far as the events, the potential prize packages for 2021. And unfortunately, we're getting word that Sarah Rabb was involved in a hard crash that has now closed out her night of competition. And the tough start to 2021 for Sarah Rabb will continue. Right now scored 25th. Being that Alan Roth is still on the racetrack, I expect Sarah Rabb to fall back to 26th spot when all is said and done. And that is not the way in which Sarah hoped to start her season. And I promise you, when we talk about the fact she was running well, we go all the way back to Sears Point at the end of 2020. She was up in the top 10 throughout most of that race. We go back to Donington Park, running very well. Road America, running in the top 10. Went to split a lap car, got taken out in a crash. Belle Isle, running top 10, taken out in a crash. Just, boy, your heart aches for Sarah Rabb and all that she's done in order to be up there and be putting down the results in this very competitive 30-plus car field. And unfortunately, bad luck has plagued Sarah Rabb again, and she will turn her attention to Imola for the next race that the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series will have in 1 week's time. But it is not forcing us to take our attention off of this battle for 3rd position, with Sarah Rabb now joining us as watching this race from the sidelines. We wish her the best going forward, but this is by far the best race that we have going for the time being, with 15 minutes to go, with Brunnemer holding down 3rd position over Nick Ledecky as they come back up onto the main straightaway.
Yeah, this is a battle we've been seeing for quite a while. While Chris Speeds was able to get himself away from these 3rd and 4th position guys, this is a battle that we've seen at least partially since essentially the beginning of the running here at Spa. It's been 75 minutes already, so these guys have definitely put on one of the better examples of racecraft throughout the evening. It's been a very consistent and respectable showing of racecraft throughout the running so far tonight. And it looks like we do have a driver on the pit lane, and I'm sorry, but it is going to be the miracle Alan Roth, and it looks like he does not have a hood. So there's a lot of critical damage.
Yeah, I did say that I thought that maybe Sarah Rab would fall all the way back. It looked as though she did fall to 26th spot. Roth showing in 25th. And let's go back and try to see if we can figure out what happened to Alan Roth. His fan club, if they stayed up relatively late here on the East Coast, it's approaching midnight. West Coast, not as late, but still not necessarily early. And here's Roth coming down the front straightaway. This looks to be the approach to, let's call it turn number 1. Roth was running at about the 25th spot, a 26th spot at the time, and this is starting to feel like a Rouge is going to be able to step out and grab another one here. Roth running by his lonesome through turn 1 up to turn 2, and this is the sector of the track at a Rouge where disaster is truly lurking on each side of the race course. And runs a little bit wide there, kicks the car sideways, and just like what we saw Alexander King do earlier on in the night, Alan Roth with heavy impact on driver's left, and that appears to be how his night is going to end, and he will come to rest in the timing and scoring charts at about the 25th spot or so.
And it's going to be back-to-back weeks of in this case, a did not finish result for Alan Roth. It happened quite a bit earlier at Belle Isle. He was at least, able to step away early and not feel too much the same disappointment you would feel this late into the running. But in the least, it's not going to be too massive of a loss. Roth already had his fair share of issues tonight. He was 3 laps down. But still, I do feel as a driver, you want to get out there and maximize as many laps as possible and do what you can given the circumstances that are given to you. As we continue to watch this compelling battle, which at this point seems to be going down all the way to the wire.
And while Hideki begins to apply the pressure, we did mention the fact that wreck looked eerily similar to that of Alexander King earlier in the race that put him out of contest. I want to thank Andrew Cardinale IV for pointing out the fact that those cars looked identical. Reason being, they're teammates, and they crashed out in similar fashion in this race. Granted, a number of time frames apart, but still, they're going to be matching up the video footage of each one of those incidents a little bit later on tonight. And I'm pretty sure that Roth followed the same tire tracks of Alexander King into the wall on the exit of Rouge, and just an ironic ending for both of those drivers here tonight on a tough night in Spa. We continue to keep our eyes on this battle. Brunnemer and Ledecky for third. Best on the racetrack. Jesse Webb still out in front by over 6 seconds. This, though, the race for third. And Ledecky, we mentioned trying to come back from the misfortune that he had at Road America, and he's closing up on the back bumper of Brunnemer for that third spot with Hansen 6 seconds behind these two.
And if Ledecky wants to make his presence known in the points, this would be the perfect opportunity. The farther you get up the running order here in the Pacific Challenge, the points just seem to grow exponentially with the way our point standings are designed this year. And, as we mentioned a lot, you do get punished quite a bit for finishing poorly. But once you get up to the front of the running order here this season, it can mean oh so much for a driver. For a driver that's had, poor showings, or maybe he wasn't able to show up at Belle Isle last week, I think he wants to do what he can, because he's a driver that's shown he can at least go up there and contend for some of the championship positions that include some additional prizes outside of just bragging rights.
Yeah, and even though we talked about the prize packages that series organizers have up for grabs at the end of this season, you mentioned bragging rights, Trey, and I think that's something that these drivers take to heart. They want to know when they get off the sim tonight, when they get set to nestle in for whether it be, more time on the sim, or whether they're going to crawl into bed at the end of this one and rest up for whatever tomorrow may have in store. They want to know that they were able to come out on top, or at least towards the top, in this caliber of a field. This isn't just some random open session on the platform. These are some of the top running road racers in GT competition on the west side portion of the United States. And it is truly some of the best in class in competition. And if you come out on top, or even in the top 10 of these drivers on a given night under these circumstances, you know that you were right up there with some of the best on the platform. And that means a lot to these drivers. Unfortunately, though, time appears to be running out. Believe it or not, we are in the final 10 minutes of competition, and we've got a great battle for third shaping up, and we've also got a great battle for sixth starting to shape up between Trevor Anderson and Corey Peters, who have been running in about the 6th and 7th spot virtually all night long, trying to settle it out with James Hansen not that far up ahead of him. And there you see Peters with a flash of the headlights trying to get the lap traffic out of the way.
And it looks like the lap truck will successfully let these two by. And you do mention James Hansen. Anderson was able to apply the pressure on Hansen pretty early into the second portion of the race following the pit cycle, but it looks like Hansen was able to build about a 3-second gap, so a very impressive job of Hansen. And without any mistakes, with 10 minutes left, it should secure a top 5 for him. And it seems like Corey Peters, like these third and fourth place runners, has been in a consistent battle with drivers throughout the evening, so definitely an impressive job by him to keep his car in good condition considering the fact he's been in very high pressure throughout most of the running.
Oh, Ledecky there. That was a big mistake there, but it didn't cost him too much. Cost him about a car length. All of the, I should say, both right side tires well off into the dirt beyond the curbing, upset the car for the time being, and he lost some ground to Brunnemer, who now runs way off track there on the exit of the right-handed corner. So this battle for third is starting to intensify, and the pressure is being turned up. Ledecky wants an opportunity to come up and talk to us at the end of this race about how he got this third-place finish as he's vying for a podium spot. This battle, though, taking place 14 seconds behind the leader of Jesse Webb, while Chris Beets is solidly running in second spot, just ahead of him. But this is still the best race on track as Ledecky tries to regroup after the off-track excursion and closes up to about 3 car lengths now on Brunnemer as they hit the line.
Yeah, that was an incredibly impressive recovery after a little bit of a mistake there from the driver of the 16 Lamborghini. Doing a very impressive job. He's the second best Lamborghini in the field tonight. Chris Beets in second place is the best of that category, or rather that manufacturer in the field tonight. It's an Audi leading the field tonight in Jesse Webb. And, as we've seen, he's been doing an incredible job tonight. He led coming out of the final chicane, and it's been the lead ever since. And you mentioned it, Eric, during the pit cycle, because it seemed like everyone came down pit road on the identical lap. So he's led every lap tonight. So barring any incidents, it is going to be a pure sweep. He did take qualifying, and I'll have to check and see if he took practice at it as well, but that could be really a pure sweep, as now it's going to be a lot of pressure from Corey Peters as we head into Lake Home for Trevor Anderson.
Coming up to turn 5, Anderson's going to protect inside, driver's right. Here comes Peters up outside on driver's left. Can he outbrake him in the corner? What a power move by Peters to clear Anderson that time through the right-hander. He had the pass made as they hit the end of the straightaway, and that's going to give Peters another spot up to 6, and that's Hansen, who just went out of your frame. A top 5 may not be out of the question for Peters if he can continue to drive further forward.
Yeah, he definitely has it. He needs a little bit of, fortunate circumstances for him to claim that top 5. But for a driver that's been so consistent today, I definitely think it's something that he does deserve if the cards end up falling his way tonight. And still, it's only a couple of car lengths between Brunnemer and Ledecky, as we're actually looking at Ledecky from the onboard camera of Brunnemer as we head on to one of the faster components of the circuit. We'll be heading into Blanchimont and into the chicane, and it'll be time for another lap around the Spa circuit.
What a great shot out the back of this Audi of Brunnemer with Ledecky, and the Lamborghini starting to close up there. Just ran out of room that time to try to get the pass made, but he is stalking the backside of Brunnemer, the driver who finished third in the overall championship to close out 2020. That time he was racing a Ferrari in the field, this time in the Audi, and he holds the lead, or should I say holds third spot on the exit of the chicane while coming up onto the main straightaway with 5.5+ minutes to go, and Ledecky just hounding the backside of him. And you mentioned earlier, Trey went back ahead here in the sim and was able to look, and Jesse Webb was in fact the fastest in the practice session by a couple of tenths of a second, so this would indeed be a perfect sweep of the night at Spa-Francorchamps for Jesse Webb if he could hang on for this final few laps. Also, according to my records, which are not always the best, I believe that we saw a lead change hand in pit cycles the last 3 races, so this may be the first time all season long that a driver's gone wire to wire in competition if Webb can hang on to the checkered flag. We're on board with Mikel Rudebush, who somehow has been able to battle his way back up to a 15th place running position despite 2 off-track excursions, one of which put him in the tire barrier, the other put him broadside to traffic, and he's trying to pick up more ground this time as he comes to the corner on Christian Gerges, who was just up ahead as they come down to turn 1.
And it's not just Gerges ahead of him, but if he has the pace, he can also overtake Gavin Cohn, and that would put him in the 13th position. While conventionally unlucky, I think that would be very lucky for him to come away with a 13th position. Well, rather a combination of luck and skill in what would be a remarkable recovery drive if he's able to pull it off. Still has 4 minutes, and that should equate to somewhere in the range of 2 to 3 laps. It depends when our race leader, Jesse Webb, is able to come across and claim the white flag, and that's when we'll determine if we get an additional lap or not.
So timing as to when you get to the start-finish line is here comes Rudebush looking for the spot on Gurgis this time. He's going to have the preferred line as they come up to the right-hander. And it's going to be Rudebush picking up yet another spot, this time on Gurgis, with Gavin Cohen up ahead. Lap traffic being able to cooperate for the time being. And here's that race inside the top 10. Wade Hayes has chased down Justin McKayla, and he's pulling the 11th place driver and Curtis Jones with him. We're going to have a 3-car fight for 9th, 10th, and 11th for these final 3.5 minutes or so.
The battle for the lead might have quelled from the start, and the battle for second as a result as well, but it's just been consistent battling throughout the field for all 90 minutes of running, and I think this bodes well for our second endurance race on the calendar. Of course, the Nordschleife is going to be a whole different beast, but that is going to be a very compelling race to watch, and that's also going to be at the point of the season where we really get to see the championship picture start to shake up. As we come through La Source, Ledecky is as close as he might have ever been through that corner, and he's coming up onto one of the most critical components of the circuit. If you want to pull off an overtake, it's going to be an A Rouge, then up the hill into Radeon. You have to be oh so nimble and gentle in your applications of throttle and steering wheel inputs, and it looks like it's a pretty solid job for Ledecky. Might not be enough to pull off the overtake. Depends on how daring he wants to be. He's in the least, forcing a maneuver by Brunnemer to go to the inside line going into Lake Home, and it's going to put pressure. It's just a matter of can he force a mistake.
That may have been about the first time that we saw Brunnemer take a defensive line that time through turn 5. I would say I don't believe I've seen him react to the pressure that Ledecky has been applying for the last few laps or so. And not to sound the alarm just yet as we drop back to this battle for 9th spot for the time being between Justin McKayla and Wade Hayes, but that lead is starting to come down a little bit here between Jesse Webb and Chris Beets. It's down to 4.3 seconds. So time is starting to run out, and Beets is going to have to hope for a miracle here, but that gap is not up to about the 6 or 7 seconds that we saw it be just a short while ago. So perhaps Beets is really starting to turn up the heat, or maybe Webb is trying to ease it home to victory in the final 2+ minutes. But this is the race for the podium spot. Ledecky and Brunnemer continuing their battle for third.
Up to the rear bumper there for the 16 car of Ledecky, and now we get into yet another critical component of the circuit if you're looking for that passing opportunity. A mistaken Blanchimont, the fast left-hander for Brunnemer, and it could be all over. It's one of the most high-speed corners on the circuit here, and that's saying a lot at a track like Spa. As they head through this section one more time, looks like it's pretty well. It goes very well, rather, for Brunnemer. Not going to be an overtaking chance, and it looks like Webb takes the white flag this time by, so it's going to be one more shot for Ledecky to pull it off. 4.5 miles to go.
So as the field is now going to come to, I should say this battle for third is going to come to the line. This is going to be the white flag. Webb has already taken the white silk. He is now one lap away from another victory on the season. This is the battle we are keeping our eyes on. Ledecky, as close as he's been down to turn number 1. And look at the rear tires of the rear side of Brunnemer's car. Step out as he got back to the power that time off turn 1. Through a Rouge up the final time. This is going to be the next best passing zone for Ledecky. If he can close up and get the job done as they approach turn 5. Brunnemer with the better launch off of Rouge that time, but Ledecky's coming.
And they're going to be side by side heading into Lacombe for what has been the first time in a while. And it looks like the advantage will go to Ledecky. He will have the preferred line heading into the left-hand corner, and he is going to be able to pull it off. Now we look for the crossover. There is an attempt at a crossover for Brunnemer. Still side by side. He's going to have to concede. So now it's a matter of coming home over the last few corners for Ledecky, and that will wrap up an impressive podium drive.
Ledecky's able to get the pass made. Brunnemer flashed the brights at him a little bit there. Not sure if that was out of frustration as those two nearly touched at one point, but Brunnemer is going to fall back into that 4th spot. Meanwhile, Jesse Webb, who started off the night quickest in practice by 0.2 of a second. He was quickest in qualifying by 0.4 of a second. And unofficially, the box score is going to show that he was able to lead every lap despite a green flag pit stop in which the rest of the field followed him home. for Webb. This could be his third victory in 4 races in what was one of the most busiest and compact schedules for any road racer on the platform over the last 7 days, as he comes through the left-hander here, getting set for the chicane for the final time. He's got 4+ seconds of breathing room over his closest pursuer in the championship, Chris Beats. And as he comes off the final corner, it's going to be Jesse Webb getting his 3rd win of 2021. This one comes at Spa. He grabs the victory and will extend the point lead as he takes round 4.
What an absolutely perfect drive. I don't think it could have gone better whatsoever for Webb. I think the question becomes, did he get any off-track incidents? Because that could secure additional bonus points, and that would be as perfect as you could statistically get here. And now the battle, it's going to be between Trevor Anderson, and it's going to be, again, Corey Peters, I believe. No, sorry, it's a teammate, Jackson Lowry. Lowry has to go around the AstroTurf, and it looks like he will not be able to get the job done. Misses the braking zone just by a little bit as we backtrack even farther heading into Blancheville.
This is the battle for ninth spot. Wade Hayes holding the spot over Justin McKayla, who's got one last chance to try to get to the back bumper. It's going to be a solid top 10 run for both these drivers. It'll be Wade Hayes coming home in 9th, and McKayla coming home in the 10th spot. It will look to be that of a last lap pass. We'll drop further back here in the running order, and that's Ruderbush trying to pick up some more ground. He's currently battling for 13th spot outside of Gavin Cohn. Gerges also looking for a way by. Ruderbush has preferred line through the final turn. Look at this gaggle coming to the checkered flag, and Cohen is going to be able to fend him off to the line.
We saw Ruderbush was a driver with a massive amount of motivation after a couple of mistakes, so that was a very impressive job of Cohen to fend off Ruderbush, and an excellent job for Ruderbush because he was able to climb all the way back up to the 14th position. So all around, a lot of fun battles to watch there. And, you know, it was a 90-minute race, labeled it as an endurance event. It definitely had some endurance tendencies. Things got strung out, but there were battles for the entire 90 minutes of running.
The box score may show that Jesse Webb led every lap along the way, but it was an incredible and electric 90-minute affair here on Pit Stop TV for the 4th race of the season for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. When we come back, we will hear from our top running finishers after their longest contest of the season thus far. We'll be right back here to hear from our front runners here on Pit Stop TV in just a moment.
Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Back in the virtual Spa-Francorchamps, where Jesse Webb has just captured his third win of the season in 4 races, but perhaps none have been as dominant as what we saw here tonight for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. He will unofficially extend the championship point lead after capturing the first of 3 endurance races on the calendar for 2021, and it is Webb who has penciled himself in as the driver to surely beat for the rest of the contest going forward. And now we have the opportunity to bring Jesse Webb into the broadcast booth to hear how he got it done. Jesse, first of all, congratulations on yet another victory. And I have to ask up front, a lot of the conjecture before we went into tonight's race involved the question of how much time were racers able to invest in learning and adapting and studying this type of racetrack, knowing that a lot of people were spending time studying the Daytona International Speedway road course for the numerous 24-hour events that were taking place. So before we ask you about tonight, let's talk about your lead-in to tonight's racing event. Were you one of those drivers who entered in a 24-hour event, and did that take up a lot of your time over the last couple of weeks?
Oh yeah, for sure it did. We did the 24-hour on Saturday morning. And yeah, our main focus was to do good in that race. So unfortunately, we went into that one, and my first stint that I got in the car, my internet cut out, and I've been having issues with my internet for quite a while now. And so coming into this one, they weren't able to come till tomorrow. So coming into this race, I was very concerned that my internet was gonna cut out. It was kind of lurking in the back of my head the whole time, just keeping me nervous, if you want to say. But no, I was lucky because even though I spent a lot of time practicing for the 24 Spa as a track I've run a lot of laps at, I know I've never done it in a GT3, but done a lot of laps in GTE, including like the 24-hour and 4-hour here. So I have a lot of experience at this track, so it wasn't foreign to me.
We'll call that internet outage the equivalent of a mechanical failure, if you will. And we're happy that it wasn't something you had to endure here tonight, especially being that we kept you around for 30 minutes longer than we have all season. It's the first endurance race of the calendar. And I want to ask, that additional 30 minutes, is that something that you feel as a racer? Like, do you notice the difference, or are you so locked in that you can't really have a concept of time when you're behind the wheel of your race car?
You don't really have a concept of time, but after doing a bunch of endurance events and stuff like that, it doesn't really bother you as much anymore. It's just like there's 30 minutes extra to the race. Well, 30 minutes more, you can increase your gap or something like that. It didn't really bother me. The only thing that I was worried about was my internet.
Well, you started off the night fastest in practice, backed it up by being nearly a half-second quicker in qualifying, and then, of course, once the race went green, I believe you had a 1-second lead at the conclusion of lap 1. And from there, the question on our end was pit strategy. Did you have it lined up that you were going to come in as soon as you eclipsed the halfway point? Was that the plan all along?
Well, everybody was tight on fuel this race. We knew we had to do some fuel saving, as you probably saw on the broadcast. We had to fuel save to hit 20 laps for our first stint, so we'd actually make it for the race. If we hadn't done that, it would have been tight on fuel after the race is done here. We did have a little extra that we could have worked with, but still, it was really crucial to save that fuel in the beginning, and I was lucky to be able to have a live spotter for him to be able to kind of communicate with me and make sure we were hitting our fuel targets.
And from there, it was pretty much smooth sailing all the way to the checkered flag. Lap traffic, fortunately, not playing that much of a factor. So, Jesse, this is your third win in 4 races in what is one of the most diverse calendars and schedules that we have in any league across the platform. I mean, you know the caliber of drivers you're racing. You know the type of tracks you're running on. Truthfully, what does this level of success mean to you, knowing who you're going up against and the venues in which you're competing on?
Oh, it definitely keeps you on your toes. You want to make sure you get as much practice in as you can, because you know if you kind of lack that little bit of practice, you're going to get kind of eaten up. And guys that have a lot of practice, they can run smooth and consistent every lap. And so if you don't get that practice in, you can kind of lack and fall back real quick, because there was, I believe, a good train this race that if you did or not get enough practice, you would have fallen back quite a few places. And with the point system, it's very harsh to if you fall back places, so you can lose a lot of spots in the championship and overall make it harder to come back.
Although my math is not the best, we assume you're going to extend the championship point lead heading into Imola next week. Going to go back to our normal 60-minute format before we let you turn your attention to that race that will be taking place on February 1st. Jesse, who do you have to thank for yet another victory on the season?
My mom and dad, everybody at PSM for all the support, and today my live spotter, which was super helpful, my sponsor SureFit, and yeah, everybody who put this event on and the competitors.
Well, Jesse, we're getting used to talking to you, so we're also happy that your internet held out throughout the night, and congratulations on another victory on what was our first extra distance race of the calendar, and we'll see what we have in store for the remainder of the season. Congrats, Jesse Webb, on your third win in 4 races to kick off your 2021 season.
Thank you very much.
And again, that is Jesse Webb, your winner, and we're getting pretty well acclimated to talking to him throughout the night as he has pretty much been on the podium in all 4 races. His worst finish so far in the season has been second, and believe it or not, look, Trey, the driver that we're about to introduce is our runner-up tonight. The same can be said for him as well.
Yeah, Chris Beats, it was an incredibly impressive drive tonight. Not quite the pace to match Jesse Webb tonight, but what are your feelings initially getting out of the car with a runner-up finish tonight?
Yeah, that's what I was aiming for. Jesse's super fast and he loves this track. Jesse and I race on a team. We were on the Apex Racing League a couple months ago, and he was an absolute monster at this track. I knew what I was going to be dealing with, so I focused on P2, save fuel, save tires, make sure I survive the race.
Hey, that's fair enough. And then this was a good question that Eric asked our winner, Jesse. What was preparation like coming in, considering that you had the Daytona 24 this weekend? I'm assuming you ran the Daytona 24.
Yeah, I ran with Jesse on his team, and yeah, our preparation was pretty minimal for today. I won't lie.
Hey, that's fair enough. Were you able to take anything from the official iRacing series that ran a month or two ago?
Yeah, we raced it when DRS went to Spa. It was the first week of the M4 and the Lamborghini, and that's where we got our testing in, I guess. I did lots of racing in lots of different cars. It's a fun track. Luckily, it's pretty popular, so a lot of people are pretty fast here. Just went with it.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like it was a fairly competitive field. I just have one more question for you, and it's looking ahead to next week at Imola. What does your practice regimen look like, and what are your expectations heading into that round?
Well, I'm gonna try and get a couple more laps in this time, for sure. Imola's a great track, but it's also very technical. You definitely need to find a couple tenths to keep up with Jesse every lap for sure. And I'll try to put in that time this week.
We hope to see a compelling battle. Sure, it will probably be between the two of you, as it's been for most of the season. Should be a lot of fun next week. Anyone you want to thank out there for your efforts tonight?
I'd like to thank my wife for putting up with me the last couple days because it's been spent in front of the computer quite a lot. And at always PSM, we grind through this season together. So thanks to those guys.
All right, thank you, Chris, and great job out there with your runner-up finish tonight.
Thanks for putting on the show.
So that's Chris Beats. He runs a pretty consistent second place tonight. Had a lot of competition from the likes of the guy who finished third place tonight, Nick Ledecky.
Thanks, Trey. And Nick Ledecky, first of all, we want to welcome Nick into the broadcast booth with us. And Nick, the last time that we saw you in competition, you were leading at Road America, which was 2 races ago. Car got away from you at one of the high-speed portions of the racetrack. And that was the memory that you had to carry with you for about 2 weeks' time before we got to Spa. This third place finish tonight, is it Novocaine for the one that got away a couple weeks ago, or are you still looking for more with the rest of the season still in store?
Well, that race put me in a very bad spot, especially missing the following one, like you said, having 2 weeks and having that be my latest result. Coming into here, that basically just caused me to be paranoid about not wrecking the car, not going overboard on incidents. But I do think I could have pushed a bit harder and possibly been up there for, I would say, a second place finish.
Now, while we don't want to harp on the unfortunate event at Road America and the fact that we did not see you at Belle Isle, the fact is your pace has been there. I mean, ever since we kicked things off at Donington, you've been one of the top 3, top 4 drivers that have been in the conversation as far as ones to watch. And that continued here at Spa. Now, the common thread amongst our front-running finishers was that many people, their time was occupied with preparations for a 24-hour event. What was your time like getting acclimated to the sim at Spa-Francorchamps, especially because of the fact that everybody's been getting ready for 24-hour races at Daytona? Did you have a lot of practice time heading into this race, or was your agenda kind of all over the place, being that there was so much more going on this past weekend?
Yeah, it was extremely all over the place. Running in the 24 hours, I focused all my time and all my attention into that initially. And I actually did not test at Donington, or rather Spa, until today. So I began practicing today, had to come up with the setup, and just sort of move forward with it.
Now, you were in a great battle with Chris Brunnemer all the way throughout this race. As a matter of fact, at one point, you, Chris Beats, the eventual runner-up, and Brunnemer were pretty much all in a 3-car train for second on back throughout the majority of this race. And you ended up taking over this final spot on the podium in the waning laps. That type of racing action, is that what this is all about? Is that what's fun that makes you drive to the sim and partake in these races and these events? Or was that a little bit too close for comfort, considering the fact you're trying to make up some ground in the championship?
I honestly I wasn't a big fan of the racing today, mainly because we had to spend so much time fuel saving that it never made sense to pass. You would much rather sit back and be the second or third car and just float in a straight line with them. But I guess the end result wasn't bad because we did get to get a little bit racy towards the end there.
That brings up a great point. And being that this is the first endurance race of the year, we're going to kind of reset things back to normal with a 60-minute time frame next week at Imola. What does your schedule look like for the remainder of the events? I know that we didn't have you at Belle Isle. Is the plan to try to compete in all these races going forward and see how far further up the standings you can get and hopefully eventually crack that top step of the podium?
As much as I would love to be here for all of the remaining events, I'm actually going to be missing one more. I need to confirm, but I believe it's Nürburgring. And if things, which they likely aren't going to work out for me to do as well as I'd like this season, I would be more than happy to come back for another next season.
Well, nevertheless, Nick, I mean, you've proven that when you are here, you are a contender. And I'm sure that this is not a venture that you partake and embark on alone. Who are some of the people who are responsible for you to be able to celebrate your second podium finish in 4 races on the season so far?
The biggest thing about sim racing is the time commitment. So the main people I would have to thank would be my own family as well as my girlfriend, because much of my time with them is taken away due to practicing on the sim. And all of the people throughout my whole racing career that have stood behind me and supported it.
Well, Nick, we appreciate you being here tonight. We look forward to seeing what you have in store for us at Imola next week, because when we see your name on the entry blank, we know that you're going to be one of the front runners, and we expect that trend to continue. Congratulations on the 3rd place finish, your 2nd podium of the season so far here tonight. Nick Ledecky, our 3rd place finisher. Good luck next week, my friend.
Thank you.
And again, that is Nick Ledecky, our 3rd place finisher, and that rounds out our podium tonight here as part of the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series in their 4th race of 10 on the season. And Trey, I don't know about you, but I am just mesmerized by the competitive nature of this field. The way in which they're able to overcome the fact that they had to, a lot of them invest their time in trying to perfect the art of getting around Daytona, not Spa-Francorchamps. I'm just really, really, really pleased with the caliber of drivers that we have in this field and all that the series organizers do, from Joseph Griffin all the way down to everybody who helps out. This is truly one of the best road racing series that we have on the sim, and the proof is in the pudding with what we've seen as far as the racing product. This is incredible, and even though Jesse Webb's 3 for 4, the caliber of race drivers and racecraft is out of this world.
As you said, Eric, the fact that even with Daytona, 20 guys were able to finish at the lead lap at Spa, and Spa, while not, a majorly technical circuit, it's still incredibly difficult to get around just because of how high speed it is. And with these GT3 cars, even on the virtual side, they could be very, trying to figure out how to put this, very twitchy and very high speed corners. So it can make it incredibly difficult through corners such as Blanchimont or up the hill at Radillon. So all around, just as you said, a very incredible job, and the organizers do a great job, and excellent job by the drivers tonight. And it's a pleasure to be a part of this series every week.
I echo those sentiments as well. And let's take a look at how they finished here tonight, as we heard from the top three, with Jesse Webb, Chris Beats, and Nick Ledecky being your top three. And Chris Brunnemer, man, he was in the second, third, and fourth pretty much all night, held the third spot pretty much all the way up to the final lap when Ledecky got him around the outside heading up to turn number 5. Brunnemer's got to settle for fourth, and James Hansen, quiet but consistent top 5 finish that's going to allow him an opportunity to further enhance his position in third place in the championship point standings, at least for the time being. Corey Peters, strong 6th-place run. Jackson Lowry, 7th. Wade Hayes, 8th. And Justin McKayla, 9th. And Curtis Jones, despite a brush with the tire barrier, rounds out your top 10.
We then start to look beyond the top 10. It's going to be BC Watt, the first guy, rather, outside of the top 10 in the 11th position, followed by Trevor Anderson, who unfortunately did run into some trouble a little bit late into the running because he was in the, I believe, 7th position near the last 5 or 10 minutes. Next, it's Gavin Cohn in 13th, followed by Mikhail Ruderbush with a pretty impressive recovery with his 14th place run. Christian Gergis will finish in the 15th position, followed by Tyler Campbell, who makes that alternative strategy work up to a 16th place finish, up from a 27th starting position. Jimmy Allen and Mick Blue are next, 17th and 18th respectively on the track. And then it's Spencer Vick and Tyler Langenberg. Actually, I believe it was Langenberg who went on the alternative strategy.
Now we're going to start to run into some of the drivers who had major trouble here throughout the night. Now, Ryan Coulter and Jason Frisk, a couple of names we didn't call on throughout the night. That meant they kept their noses relatively clean. Randall Ayers and Michael De La Salle, 23rd and 24th. Patrick Herring, 25th. Now we start to see some of the drivers who had major wall contact at some point, including that of Alan Roth, Sarah Rabb, John McClintock to 28th. Scott Snyder and George Tachek to the 30th spot. And the rest of the field is Derek Carboni in 31st. Sven Hartman, who we thought was going to have a great night, ended up in 32nd spot. John Wittendorf in the major multi-car crash 20 minutes in 33rd. Alexander King, 34th. And, of course, Lubin Allen Flanagan did not make the green flag, even though they were taking part in practice and qualifying. And that is your field for our 4th race of the season. I want to take one more opportunity to thank those who make this all possible, including that on the league side. Sarah Rabb, who had a rough night behind the wheel of her race car. Remember, she is one of the people who is responsible for supporting this series, also has her name in the mix as far as some of the championship prizes, as does Tam Livery. And we also want to thank Benke Cinematography for all that they do for the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series. And I also want to loop back and try to give one more proper shout out to our presenting sponsors here on the platform, Pit Stop TV. I know that in the midst of doing this, we had a bunch of things happen on the racetrack. So we'll run through this as quickly as we can, because it's because of these people and these logos you see on the left-hand side of your screen that we all have the opportunity to come on out and do this here on numerous nights throughout the week. First off is Tucson Sound Art, because it is your picture, your art, your music. You take any photo that you would like. In my case, it's probably going to be from some of the upcoming festivities that is going to take place on Valentine's Day. So I take any photo that we would like, and you send that off to our friends at Tucson Sound Art, and they will put it on a beautiful custom-framed canvas with a Bluetooth built-in speaker, and we end up with the best of both worlds. It's truly our picture and our music, or we could even sync up our Pit Stop TV broadcasts to those events, and that would be the best way to project the sound of everybody that you hear on the platform to call some of the racing action that we have here throughout the night. And with Valentine's Day right around the corner, it is the best opportunity to use the promo code PitStopTV, all one word, at checkout for 10% off of your purchase. For more information on the products and services that are available, head on over to TucsonSoundArt.com for more. We also want to thank Ashley Bollier at Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, because when it comes to your appearance, you truly deserve the best that money can buy. Now, Ashley Bollier is a certified micropigmentation specialist who provides professional, safe, and most importantly, personalized services. Now, you can contact Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine at their website, permanentmakeupinmaine, all one word.com, or you can call or text them at their number that is provided on the website or the social media platforms. But here's the coolest thing. If you like their Facebook page, Permanent Makeup and Cryo in Maine, they have monthly giveaways, and all you have to do is be there, be available, see it, enter it, and you may be able to walk away a winner. And you can get a first-hand experience in some of the products and services they have to offer. And again, that's permanentmakeupinmaine.com, or check them out on Facebook as well. And lastly, we want to thank Whiplash Media as the parent organization of Pit Stop TV. They specialize in various sim racing resources, all of which you saw in play tonight. In fact, you see it on your screen right now, such as the camera packs that we've utilized for tonight's broadcast. They also handle paint schemes, stream overlays, and more. And they also have a presence in the real world of motorsports, and they offer services such as photography, social media management, and public relations. For more information, head on over to whiplash-media.com for more. Thank you to all of those partners, both on the series side and on the Pit Stop TV side, for making this possible. And also, don't forget that we are going to be very busy over the next few weeks with more sim racing broadcasts on the platform. We're going to be quiet tomorrow, but Wednesday we'll be back with Bluegrass iRacing Series at Atlanta. Friday night, LTAC, their third race of the season at Atlanta. And then next Monday, another doubleheader. If you want to get your dirt racing fix and road racing fix, we're going to have the BRPI Racing Series at Lanier, and then we'll be right back here with the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series at Imola, putting us at the halfway point of the season. So, Trey, now that we got all the housekeeping duties out of the way, I love this series. We were talking in the commercial break earlier. This truly is some of the best road racing drivers that we have out here on the platform, some of the most challenging tracks you can find on the platform, and with Imola, Laguna Seca, Nürburgring, Sebring, so on and so forth, I feel like each and every round is going to provide us with an opportunity to see who is truly the best amongst this bunch of drivers. And I think the championship picture is going to continue to tighten up. Jesse Webb's got a stranglehold on it, but we got a lot of racing still to go.
Oh, yeah, and we continue to harp on the fact that this calendar is exceptional, but it very simply, it's incredibly diverse, and it goes to some of the best racetracks in the entire world on the virtual side here on the iRacing.com service, whether it be Imola next week, or the fact that we're going to go to Suzuka to conclude the season, or I'm glad we're stepping up to the tall task of the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And while that's going to be an incredibly unique event, yeah, it's just awesome that we get to present this series. Glad we were able to find a partnership, and yeah, look forward to next week. And of course, glad to have all the other events that we cover here on the Pit Stops TV platform.
And that is a great point. So we will be back in action with this series, the Pacific Challenge GT3 Series, in 1 week's time. Round number 5 is going to take place on February 1st, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, for more information, be sure to follow Pit Stop TV on all our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, as well as YouTube, as we will be bringing you all the action for all of 2021. With that, on behalf of Trey Shuttlesworth, who has done an amazing job on the call with me here tonight, Emerson Arden, who was in a production truck all night long, showing us every battle that took place out on track throughout this mammoth 4.35-mile course, Corey Rexford, as well as Andrew Cardinale IV, who stuck in to help out with some social media duties as well. I'm Eric Brennan. I want to wish you all a safe and incredible and wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time here on Pit Stop TV. Good night, everybody.
Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with the speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.